Please join me for a moment of silence. Please now join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The music is on. Oye, me tiene harto esa vaina. So we're going to proceed with public participation, and we have one person that have signed up for public participation. H. Mali, please refer to this council as a whole, not to any individual councilors. You have 2.5 minutes to speak. At the 2-minute rule, at the 2-minute mark, you're going to hear a beep indicating that you still have 30 seconds.
Humayun Mali, 53 Chester Street. Good evening, honorable members. In this historical meeting, we the citizens are united to support Lawrence Police Officers Union. Lawrence Police, this union of pride and honor, with the impeccable leadership by Honorable Chief Bonilla, doing excellent job to protect our citizens. Lawrence is a safe city because of our best police officers. Our journey to have a permanent leadership for our awesome Lawrence Police Department is the journey full of struggle and obstacle, but we, the Laurentians, are united and strong to overcome. This police department, we are proud of your hard work. We stand united to say Blue Lives Matter, the best example of protect and serve, protecting us in this great nation. When the Blue Lives Matter, we the Laurentians overcome this obstacle in attaining the goal of hiring a permanent leader for Lawrence Police Department. We the citizens are united to support this champion of the first responder in the nation. Tonight, in this historical meeting, we the Laurentians stand up united and strong to say Blue Lives Matter. Lawrence Police Officers, thank you for excellent job. Thank you for making Lawrence a safe city. We are proud of you.
Right, this name is going to be submitted for the record, and we're going to proceed with the item that we have on the old business. Claire, did we table this item? So we have this item tabled, and I'm going to entertain a motion to untable the matter. There's a motion to untable item 2825, properly second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nay? There's nobody on Zoom, so the motion carries. So item 2825, which is the review and discussions of the October 2024 Bennett report, now including and related investigation, which include the second report, which is the Maverick report. We are very pleased to have a couple of members from each organization that is here with us tonight. Thank you for accepting our invitation to come over to discuss this with us and to respond to a specific question that the council might have. So at this time, councilors, we're going to proceed with that discussion that we previously have. Since then, we have received the second report for this investigation, which is from the Maverick and the Maverick report. During the same night of the meeting, this report was available in media source for everybody to download, perhaps. And everybody downloaded up there, read it, and then subsequently we received an official report from the administration, the city attorney. But passing that over to other conversations, we are going to proceed with entertaining the Bennett report, the continuation of the discussion of the Bennett report, and also having the Maverick report, which is also important for us to include into this discussion. So, councilors, at this time, proceeding with the conversation that we previously have, I'm going to entertain any particular questions that we have
Council President.
for either one of the investigations. Councilor Vice President Infante.
Thank you, through you. I have a question for the city attorney first before we proceed with the two investigations report. Council President mentioned how that the Merrick report was released to a media source, an unredacted version of it. You did send out an email, public email, saying that your office was going to investigate this. Where are we at with that investigation?
Well, I've not been authorized to do any investigation. I said it should be investigated. I don't have the power to engage in an investigation
Your email
myself.
says that you were going to conduct an investigation as to how that report was quote-unquote,
I understand that, but I cannot expend money just based on my own. I have to be authorized
Councilor
to
Vice
spend
President.
money. I inquired on my own about who or how it got leaked. I found no information. The mayor's office, I questioned people up there. They have I got no information, so anything beyond that, I would have to expend money. Anything spending money, my office does not have the authority to do that, to hire any agency or whatever. But based on my, just to give it a quick, what the timeline was, while I was here before you, and, you know, we've given kind of names for these reports that don't actually mean that's the names, that's the name of the company, but the second report, which was done by Maverick, was in the mayor's office. I did not have a copy, I had not seen a copy, I had not seen the document. I believe it was being photocopied at that time. Sometime after the end of our meeting, I believe and again, this is all hearsay. I have no actual knowledge of any of this. A thumb drive was dropped by Tom Duggan's paper. Mr. Duggan, the next day, or that night, I don't know when, published online a copy of the unredacted version. I learned about it first thing in the morning from the police department. Obviously, the police were quite upset and were asking me how this happened. I said I had no idea. I immediately called Mr. Duggan and sent him an email telling him that he had published an unredacted version. I asked him to remove it, which he did. I then got a copy of the report myself that morning and began redacting it. Once it was redacted, I sent it out to all people that would have received the unredacted version. But
Councilor Vice
Thank you.
President, at this point, what the city attorney is telling us that we as a council can ask for an investigation on this. So will you proceed with making a motion, or essentially we would like to make a motion, I'm looking for motion to order the city attorney for an
I make a
investigation on
motion
this
to
point.
order the city attorney to investigate how this report was leaked I'm gonna say during a city council meeting.
Second.
So there's a motion on the table, probably second discussion on this matter.
Discussion.
Councilor LaPlante.
I will not be supporting this motion. It is important. I don't want to dismiss that. The most important things that we should be discussing this evening should be what is the contents of the report. This building has been circling around, focusing on these reports. My fear, as I represent the people that I represent, is that there's so much focus going on this stuff that other things that are really important as well are not being dealt with. And to add one more layer to this, I don't think the people that we represent justice, that I think this is what the intention of this is, and I don't want to diminish it so much, but I do want to be pragmatic about this, and I do want to look at what we want to get accomplished. So I will not be supporting this evening, because tonight what I want to do is find out more about the allegations that I read. I want to figure out what's happened with the Maverick report as it deals with the Bennett report, and then I want to get to a place where I can go back to the people that I represent and say, this is what we're hearing regarding the true substance of the matter. Thank you, Council President.
Council
All right, no
President?
problem. At this time, if it is no discussion on the matter, I'll call the question. Any other
Council
questions?
President?
Do you have a question? Let's stay on the question and then we
It's-
can proceed.
It's about,
Okay. Yeah, Councilor Vice President Infante.
thank you. I understand, this whole thing is important, which includes how this investigation got leaked prior to proper procedures. Us not doing something about it sends a message that if there's anything else pertaining to allegations like retaliation against employees, that it is okay for the city to just be irresponsible with documents like this. And I'm telling you, we're a municipality, so something like this may not be the first time that occurs within this city or any city. So is that the message you want to send to the public? That it is okay to be irresponsible with documents and names of personnel that we should be protecting?
Thank you, Councilor Vice President. At this point, if there is no other questions, I'll gonna call the questions. All those in favor, please say aye for the investigation.
Aye.
Any nays? Roll call, please.
Councilor Reyes, we'll start with you. Councilor Reyes?
Yes.
Councilor Mamo is noted as absent. Councilor Santiago?
Yes.
Councilor Del Rosario?
Abstain.
Councilor Luzon?
Yes.
Councilor LaPlante?
No.
Councilor Levy?
Yes.
Council Vice President Infante?
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez?
I vote yes. Motion carries. So you have all the power now to investigate this matter.
And just to be clear, because there are, as you know, power in words, I personally am not going to investigate this.
We understand
I will-
that.
I will hire someone to do it. There
Yeah.
is an inherent conflict with me investigating.
We understand that.
Something happens. Okay,
Proceed the proper way.
thank you so much.
All right, no problem. So now let's go to the contents of the report, which is basically how we, as of last time that we were here, we discussed this, and then now we have more information and proper information to be discussed. So councilors, when it comes to the report, either or, there is any questions for the parties present here, or the city attorney that is here, or any question in general?
Council President,
Councilor Marmo, I'm sorry, Councilor Luzon.
thank you, Council President. I would like to add to all the documents that we receive a letter from Post that it was sent, that I requested earlier today to our Madam Clerk, and the letter was sent from Post to our attorney, to the attorney,
Have we
the
read
city attorney, and
Have we read
also CC to Melix Bonilla. And if I may, Council President, can I ask the attorney to read this letter?
I will have the city clerk to read it for the
City
record.
Clerk?
Yeah,
Okay. Thank you, Council President.
no problem. No, it's going, you're gonna have it in a second. It's not, you don't have it yet. But Madam Clerk, do you mind reading the letter, please? I do not.
This is a letter dated February 4th. It's via email only from the Post Commission to Attorney Timothy Hooton and Acting Chief of Police Melix Bonilla. The reline is Report of Maverick Investigation Services, and the letter reads as follows. Attorney Hooton and Acting Chief Bonilla, I write on behalf of the Post Commission, Commission, and regarding a report prepared by Maverick Investigation Services, Maverick, and on behalf of the City of Lawrence, a copy of which the Post Commission recently received from the city. Having conducted an initial review of the Maverick report, I wish to bring to your attention the Commission's concern regarding one aspect of the report, what Maverick describes as a, quote, significant procedural misstep allegedly committed by the supervisor of the Lawrence Police Department's Internal Investigations Unit, Lieutenant Paul Rossi. In its report, Maverick alleges that Lieutenant Rossi violated the Commission's regulations when he provided information to the Commission about alleged misconduct by former Provisional Police Chief William Castro. Maverick justified its findings by saying that Lieutenant Rossi was, quote, not the head of the agency, end quote. His duty was to report the complaint only to the Lawrence Mayor, Brian DePena, and it would have then been the responsibility of the mayor to report it to Post, end quote. See Maverick report at pages 28 and 29. Maverick then concludes that quote, Rossi took it upon himself to ensure the memorandum was emailed to Post, and in doing so made a significant error which violates 55 CMR 1.03. On behalf of the Commission, I wish to inform you that the Commission finds no factual or legal basis to support these findings. On the contrary, the information available to the Commission supports a finding that Lieutenant Rossi acted properly and commendably when he reported information to the Commission. Maverick observes that Lieutenant Rossi was not, quote, the head of the agency. That fact, however, is irrelevant. While the, quote, head of the agency certainly has significant responsibilities to report complaints to the Commission and to take care of those complaints are properly investigated, no provision of any statute or regulation bars any other officer from making a good faith report to the Commission. In fact, Mass General Law, Chapter 6E, Section 3A5, provides that the Commission may receive complaints from any source, and there is no merit to Maverick's additional finding that Lieutenant Rossi somehow committed a, quote, significant error, end quote, in violation of 555 CMR 1.03. That provision pertains to the confidentiality of proceedings and the records of the Commission's preliminary inquiries. And Maverick's report does not explain how Lieutenant Rossi's act of reporting information compromised that confidentiality in any way. Finally, Maverick's report and the nature of its allegations also raise a reasonable concern as to the potential retaliation against Lieutenant Rossi or any other officer who may have reported information to the Commission or who might wish to do so in the future. To be clear, Massachusetts law specifically protects law enforcement officers who report information to the Commission from retaliation by their public employer. Mass General Law, Chapter 6E, Section 12, quote, no officer or employee of the Commonwealth or any county, city, town, or district shall discharge an officer or employee, change their official rank, grade, or compensation, deny a promotion, or take any other adverse action against an officer or employee, or threaten to take such action for providing information to the Commission or testifying in a Commission's proceedings. The Commission wishes to state most emphatically that it will take whatever steps are necessary to protect the ability of any law enforcement officer in the Commonwealth to make a good faith report to the Commission freely and without fear of retaliation. And the Commonwealth will forcefully act in response to any evidence of actual or threatened retaliation. Such action may include making referrals to the appropriate prosecutorial entities. For the above reason, the Commission hereby informs you that it finds no basis to support a finding that Lieutenant Rossi violated the Commission's regulations in any way. To the extent you or city officials may benefit from additional guidance on any aspect of the Commission's reporting requirements, we urge you to seek guidance from the Commission directly. Given the nature of this correspondence, we are providing a copy to Lieutenant Rossi. Very truly yours, Matthew P. Landry, Director, Division of Police Standards. And it's copied to Lieutenant Paul Rossi.
This letter will be submitted for the record of this item. Councilors, any other questions in regard to this matter? Councilor LaPlante.
I'm all set with Mr. Hooton, but I do want to ask Mr. Moran, who's here from Maverick, to come before the microphone, please, through you.
Good evening, Rob Moran, CEO, co-founder, Maverick Investigative Services. I believe my business partner, Ryan Sambertaro, has joined us by Zoom, as well as Rob Budrick from RCB and Associates has also joined us by Zoom.
Yes, they're here. Just your address for the record as well.
My address?
Yes.
Home address or business address?
Business.
26 Irma Road, Salem, New Hampshire.
Councilor LaPlante.
Thank you. So, like I said earlier, I want to get into the meats and potatoes of the issue. Help me understand why you were hired.
May I address the Post letter first, since that's fresh off? Because there's nowhere in my report where you will see that I said he didn't have the authority. He claimed he was required to. It's the head of the agency that's required to. So we just need to clarify that.
So, my colleague here, thank you for that. I believe my colleague is going to challenge you on that, and I'll give her when she's got the time, I'll let her do that. But I want to go back to my original question, which is, in your words, why were you hired to do, what to do this report / investigation?
Maverick was first hired to do a forensic extraction investigation on 2 city-owned devices, a cell phone and a laptop. The extraction part of it was several text messages that, without proper context, could be viewed as something that's, there was collusion, there was interference, and basically required more in-depth investigation, which was done through our subsequent investigation, which was to entail whether there was any collusion or interference that would have compromised the investigation done by Daniel Bennett.
That last part again.
So if there was any collusion that would have compromised the investigation by Daniel Bennett. We were not tasked with, nor did we reinvestigate what Mr. Bennett did.
So you were looking to add information to the Bennett report? Is that what, and I'm going to use Bennett report. I realize it's actually CIC, it's different, but for shorthand purposes, we're going to call the Bennett report and we're going to call your report the Maverick report for shorthand purposes. So for the so you're essentially adding more information to what Bennett apparently that report did not have?
When the understanding was that the initial investigation was for a policy violation, pursuit policy violation. It then expanded to several other allegations. So we were also asked to determine how that happened, how it expanded, where that came from.
Want to get to the conclusion, which I have here, and I'm going to read what I read in your report, and then I'm going to, because what we're doing here is we're trying to figure out, I'm trying to figure out why we have the mayor's office do an investigation. Then we have the Bennett investigation. Then we have the Maverick investigation. And I'm thinking to myself, there's a heck of a lot of investigations going on here. Why can't we figure out what we're doing? And we're spending some money to make this thing happen and spending time to make this thing happen. Time is going forward and we're not getting to a resolution. Meanwhile, we are paying individuals who are administrative leave over $200,000 a year with the current chief. So there's money that's being, taxpayers' money that's being obligated because of the time. So these investigations, I'm just trying to figure out why you were here. And you're telling me that because you had to add something to the Bennett investigation and you wanted to see there was collusion and you were being asked to kind of double check to make sure there wasn't, that investigation that Bennett had was thorough enough.
No.
Okay, say it again.
We were tasked with first determining how the investigation expanded from the initial complaint about a policy violation. And then, if there was any collusion that would have somehow interfered with Bennett's investigation.
And what were those findings?
There was no collusion.
There was no collusion. And in your conclusion, I'll read, however, these issues, you mentioned some issues, some discrepancies and such, and you went into some detail on that. Not to diminish it, it's here, and we're not going to rehash every small detail. I'm not going to. However, these issues did not compromise the investigations, the Bennett investigations, my words, integrity.
Correct.
So you stand by that?
Correct.
Okay. So that's what I need to hear from you. Thank you very much. I would like to, through you, Mr. President, I'd like to ask Secretary Bennett or someone from his staff to come forward, please. Good evening. And Mr. Moore, I want to thank, I didn't thank you. I want to thank you for being here this evening. And I know the mayor released you from being here, and I'm thankful that you're here and being able to provide some information. Same goes to you, Secretary Bennett. Thank you for your years of service. in the police department. I need to know more about you. I've read the stuff inside this book. I've heard it. I think it's more powerful if I hear from you what you bring to the table with respect to the report, with respect to your experience, and why I should trust what you've written down in this report.
Certainly. 1985, I graduated from Harvard. I then went to Suffolk Law School, graduated.
Mr. Bennett,
Oh, I,
just for the record, can you state your name and address for the record, please?
yes. Daniel Bennett, DanielBennett. My office address is 15 Foster Street, Quincy, Massachusetts.
You may proceed.
Thank you. And I apologize.
No, don't worry about it.
After that, I went to work for the Middlesex District Attorney's Office, where I prosecuted cases in Lowell. At a certain point, Prosecutor Paul McLaughlin was shot, and the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office were looking for prosecutors who had prosecuted gang cases to come and do joint investigations with the gang unit from the Boston Police Department. I got a job with the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office in their gang unit. I prosecuted gang cases and did gang investigations in Boston.
Say something, please.
Then after that, I went into private practice for 8 years. Then I was hired as a senior trial counsel for the Middlesex District Attorney's Office, where I was a senior advisor to Jerry Leone, and as senior trial counsel, many of the important murder cases were cases that I did the investigations on and then tried. In my career, I've tried over 30 murder cases and done the investigations on them. After I was at Middlesex for 4 years, Joe Early called me up from Worcester County, made me made me first assistant, which is the number 2 person in Worcester County. I went out there, really managed the office for DA Early, and continued to try murder cases. In the first 2 years there, I tried 11 murder cases that I investigated and tried, and continued there for 4 years. Then Governor Baker, I got a call from Governor Baker's office. Was I interested in applying to be the Secretary of Public Safety? I met with Governor Baker, and then I was offered that job. That job entails being in charge of the Mass Police Training Commission, which oversees all police in the state and how they are trained. You oversee the Massachusetts State Police. You oversee the Department of Corrections. You oversee parole, the National Guard, and all of those, a number of other different agencies, including MEMA. I was there for 4 years. After I left there, I started comprehensive investigations and consulting to do investigations. And originally, the company, my 2 partners, Kerry Gilpin, who was former colonel of the state police, and John Benson, who has made primarily, although I knew him from the AG's office, has primarily been a defense attorney, but it was a mixture of people who could look at cases that had done investigations, but at the same time had different points of view. I've had comprehensive investigations and consulting. I've been the CEO and one of the founding partners for the last 4 years. And since then, we've investigated, I'm going to say close to 100 police departments and school departments.
Well, suffice to say,
And sheriff's departments, sorry.
and in our city, you've done some work. What work have you done in our city?
I've kind of done 2 different things. One, and this is away from CIC, I'm still hired by different district attorneys' offices to do investigations. So with regards to that, the Essex County DA's office, who had hired me to do 2 murders for them, asked me to do an investigation of an internal incident that happened at the police department. So I did that for the Essex County DA's office. Then I was hired by the city of Lawrence to do another investigation with regards to a individual who overdosed inside the jail cell. And then after that, Mr. Owens sent me a request to make a proposal with regards to 4 different incidents that involved Chief Castro.
And when you say Mr. Owens, you're talking about the former personnel director for the city.
That's correct.
In any of your experience, especially in the city of Lawrence, did you get a negative rating or any kind of negative feedback about your performance?
No, I did not.
Thank you. That's what I am hearing from those who are saying that your report is inadequate, is that you failed to interview Mr. Castro. I would like for you to comment on the importance and the background with respect to allowing someone who is a principal in the report, you're not having an opportunity to conduct an interview.
Okay, certainly. Mr. Castro was a difficult person for the city to actually serve with the complaint. They were having difficulty doing that. They finally were successful in serving him with the complaint. His attorney acknowledged that he had received the complaint. At that point, his attorney requested a large group of documents, which I sent to his attorney. I also sent his attorney an email. I said, what are good days for you? Just give me some days that are good for you, and we'll do the interview on one of those days. He didn't respond back to me. I picked October 8th I picked October 8th as a day. He sent back that he was unavailable. I then moved it to the next week, October 15th. I sent that to him as a date. He said that he was unavailable. Finally, he said late in the month of October that he would be available. So I sent him the date of October 25th. At that point, Mr. Castro's attorney started to say I had no right to question his client. At that point, I went back to Mr. Owens and I said, I've never had this happen before because I'm an independent investigator. He's gotten that paperwork from you. But he's saying I don't have a right to talk to his client. At that point, Michael Owens served him to come to Quincy, and I believe it was for October 8th that we were going to do the interview. In the meantime, Michael Owens got fired. That's what it says in my report, and I'm standing by that because on October 5th, Michael Owens called me up and said, I've been fired. Then I waited in my office for Mr. Castro and his attorney to show up on the date that he had been served by Michael Owens. He, at that point, did not show up, so I sent him an email telling him, you didn't show up, we're going to continue our investigation, and as we continue our investigation, we will then write a report for the city of Lawrence. That was essentially what was in that letter. There was also some verbiage about informing him that of the correct things he was actually that were there, the correct documents. So then, what happened was on October 10th, I came up to the city of Lawrence to.
Motion to recess. We have some interference with the music, and then that's being, I guess that is being, like, as you hear,
Certainly.
it's going out of
Whatever
control.
the council wants.
Motion to recess. There's a motion to recess, properly second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
not when the mayor spoke. Not when the mayor spoke, only afterwards.
And there was a licensing meeting before this, and there was no meeting.
What they're gonna do, honestly speaking, I told
Only
Carlos
late.
this morning. Pero there was music when it was done. It wasn't like flowers and everything. But what I told Carlos this morning is they need somehow to plug everything, every plug. He said that he already gave it. It's something that's very inside. So they will plug all those old cables. There's cables there that been there forever. So they need to know how to unplug it. He said that he already gave it. So
It's off right now. I don't know. Today's back on Thursday. Today's the 5th, right? Tomorrow's the 6th.
I'll entertain a motion to come out of recess.
So moved.
Motion to come out of recess, properly second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. We apologize for the inconvenience. There is technical issues that we've been having lately with an interference with a local radio station that come in, especially during the night. It's very awful. So, Mr. Bennett, thank you for providing us with the answer. You might continue with the conversation.
So we were in the middle of answering the question. The question was it seems like it's a central point of this entire investigation, at least part of it, at least from sides, that if you don't have the principal, Mr. Castro, interviewed, then there's a discredit to the report. So I wanted to hear more about how we got to Castro not giving you were giving a timeline, so.
Correct. I sent on the 8th an email to his attorney saying you didn't show up. The investigation continues, and there'll be a report done at the end of the investigation. On the 10th, I came up to interview more witnesses, and at that point, Internal Affairs for Lawrence was in a separate building. I don't know where it is now, but it was in a separate building. I got there at 10 o'clock in the morning to interview the witness I was going to interview in Internal Affairs. At that point, I got a phone call from Octavian Spanner as I walked in to do the interviews on the 10th. He then texted me, but I was doing my interviews. When I got done with my interviews, I sent back a text to him essentially saying that all our oral correspondence, nothing can be oral. I want everything in writing going back and forth between the two of us. At 5 o'clock that evening, he sent me an email saying that on instructions of the mayor, I was to halt my investigation, and that Attorney Hooton would be in touch with me later to discuss discuss other issues. At that point, my investigation was stopped. Attorney Castro's attorney had said I had no right to question him. The mayor's office had told me that I was to halt my investigation, and halt by Webster's actually means stop my investigation. So there was nothing further I could do except write my report. So I got that notice on the 10th to halt my investigation. I started writing my report. Sunday night on the 13th, I sent my report to the city of Lawrence. I sent it to an individual. I'm not going to use police names here. I sent it to a police officer. I sent it to Attorney Hooton, and I sent it to the mayor. I did not send it to Post. I don't know why that has, people are saying that, but I know where I sent it, and it was not to Post. It was to those three individuals. Now, I think you always want to be able to interview the respondent in an investigation. But it is not necessary to interview the respondent if you've got other circumstantial evidence which will lead you to a conclusion. That's not to say you're dismissing what the respondent would say to you if he would talk to you. But in this case, I wasn't given an opportunity to talk to the respondent. His attorney said he wouldn't talk to me, and the mayor's office dictated that I couldn't continue my investigation. Further, when I sent back the email to his attorney saying that my investigation was continued, he never got back in touch with me saying, geez, we weren't good for that day. We can go to another day. Can you do late October? I probably would have, I would have given him the time to do that, but that's not what he was saying. He was saying, you don't have a right to talk to my attorney. And that's what he was saying. I'm sorry. You don't have a right to talk to my client. That's what he was saying in his emails. And then, now, I've done prosecutions and investigations for over 30 years now. There are many times that you don't get to talk to the suspect or the respondent. As a matter of fact, in this case, where our findings were that Mr. Castro lied in his report, he had a Fifth Amendment privilege. He could have come in and refused to answer my questions, and I still would have written a report. You have to give the Carney warnings to an individual that you are conducting an investigation of. He didn't even have to answer my questions if he came in. So the reason I'm bringing that up is you don't, just because a respondent refuses to talk to you or for one reason or another won't talk to you, that doesn't end your investigation. What you have to do is look at all the evidence, find the evidence, and take that other evidence and come to a conclusion if you can. If you can't come to a conclusion based on all that evidence, then you come back and you say, well, this allegation's not sustained. I can't sustain this allegation. And that's the end of it. But that was not the case in this situation. I had substantive evidence involving the video, involving the dispatch calls, and involving other police officers' testimony. And all of it fit together to give a very strong circumstantial case and direct evidence case that Mr. Castro was in a high-speed chase when he didn't have a right to be in it, and then he went and lied on his police report, which is, in my mind, far more serious because you can't have a dishonest police officer.
Mr. Bennett, Councilor Blunt, do you still have questions?
I do.
Okay, Councilor
But
Blunt.
I do know that other councilors who wish to speak, so I'm going to try. I ask short questions, I think I do, and there's longer answers, so.
Yeah, I apologize. That
No,
was a very long answer.
but it's important that we hear what you have to say, and I think you may be answering what other colleagues may be asking or thinking, so I think you're in a good place. So what I'm hearing, I kind of want to regurgitate just a little bit, is that while it's preferable to have someone, in this particular case, Castro, available for an interview, based on the experience that you've had, and you've given some examples of times when you don't have the respondent there or the defendant there, you're going forward with what you have. And in this particular case, what I'm hearing is that you have so much other information, whether it's videos or other correspondence or records of such, that you felt comfortable to go ahead and provide the report that the city paid you for and complete the report, even though, and because of the reasons you mentioned, the halting, et cetera, et cetera. So I want to make sure that I understand that that's the basis of your response.
That's correct.
Okay. I do have a question for, and by the way, is there a requirement that someone like Castro be present with an attorney? Must he be there with an attorney? Can he say, I'm not there because my attorney's not available? Is that a rationale or a basis for not attending a inquiry or a question or investigation?
He has the opportunity to show up with a union official if he's part of a union, but he has to show up. But I just want to point out that him not showing up was not held against him in the tiniest. I didn't consider it at all that he didn't show up. I made my basis on all the evidence that I had. But yes, he had to show up. If for no other reason to say, I can't answer questions today. I want my attorney here with me.
I'm going to have one more question, and I want to go back to Mr. Moran for a question. In your experience, and you've already described how long you've been involved in public safety at various levels, at the highest level, quite frankly, in our Commonwealth, can you, when these kinds of allegations and someone of a serious report, such as yourself, and you're not the only one in town, there are others who do fine jobs as well, but you, from what I'm told, are in the top tier of these individuals who are in this practice, in this business. When that happens, do the individuals who are that you recommend for, in this particular case, termination, do they somehow survive, or in most cases, do the folks who are the leaders of those various communities, do they resign? Is action taken? I just want to get a sense as to where we fit, because right now, this individual is now no longer a police officer or serving as a chief of staff, not chief of staff, but serving as a police chief, but is currently serving in city government. So I just want to get a perspective from you. So I have context what's happening, not just in Lawrence, but across.
I hate to make a generalization on that. to be straightforward, do I think that most cities and towns accept our recommendations, whatever they may be? Yes, but there are plenty of times that there are other things that a city or town takes into consideration, and they make a different decision than the recommendation that CIC has made.
Thank you. And I have one more question for Mr. Moore, and then I'm going to wrap it up, because I do want to hear my colleagues' questions. Mr. Moore, thanks again. And I read the report. I read both reports. In your report, I want, Mr. Castro did go.
Yes.
And did respond to you.
Yes.
And so I just want to get a sense, this seems a little odd from where I'm sitting, that not going to one, but saying yes to another, and didn't bring an attorney. There was reasons that we heard from Mr. Bennett saying he didn't want to go without an attorney, or the attorney said he wasn't going to really allow his client to go there, but yet he went with you. Any insight there?
Yes.
What?
Because nobody was a target of my investigation. Mr. Castro wasn't a target, Mr. Owens wasn't a target, none of the police officers were a target, nobody at City Hall was a target. Our job was to determine how the investigation expanded, and then if there was any collusion amongst any of the stakeholders that would have compromised what Mr. Bennett did.
Final question. And my final question.
One second, while they're touching on that. Because then the question is not going to be, yeah, you still have the floor. You're working on it. I don't know. You might continue.
Last question. So just so I'm clear again, in your findings, do you dispute any of the Bennett report's findings?
We didn't reinvestigate what Mr. Bennett did.
But all that you did, is there anything that you would, on all the stuff that you have done in your report, are you disputing any of the Bennett?
Councilor LaPlante,
Yeah.
can you repeat your question? I wasn't able to hear it.
Sure. So my question to Mr. Moran was, based on in his report and his investigation, is there any part of his investigation that would dispute the findings of the Bennett Commission, the Bennett report, excuse me?
Again, we were not tasked with reinvestigating what Mr. Bennett did, and I'm not going to question what he did. Would I have done it the same way? No. But that doesn't mean that the way he did it is incorrect.
So just so I'm clear, so based on the narrow scope that you're talking about, I understand that, you've made that clear twice now, that narrow scope, that you're not disputing the Bennett report.
Again, we didn't reinvestigate what he did. So, no, I don't. He made his findings, and the city, as he stated in his conclusion, or at the beginning rather, the city can accept or dismiss his findings. Those are his findings, he stands by them, and we were not tasked with reinvestigating what he did or evaluating what he did. That wasn't the scope of what we did at all.
Thank you, Council President.
Yeah, just to clarify from do you have your report with you?
I do.
Okay, do you mind reading the introduction so we can have the full scope of what you were hired for?
Reading the what?
The introduction of the report, page 1.
Maverick Investigative Services and RCB and Associates were engaged by the City of Lawrence, Mass. To investigate the circumstances surrounding the expansion of the William Castro investigation. Initially centered on a motor vehicle pursuit policy violation, the investigation extended to allegations of untruthfulness, unethical hiring practices, intimidation, and retaliation. The primary purpose of this investigation was to determine whether collusion among specific parties compromised the integrity of the investigation conducted by Daniel Bennett of Comprehensive Investigations and Consulting.
All right. I'm gonna pass this, Councilor, do you have, Councilor LaPlante, do you have any other question?
Not right now. I may have some
Right.
later. Thank you.
So, any other councilors?
Council President,
Councilor Luzon?
thank you, Council President. Thank you for being here. Who hired you?
The City of Lawrence.
Who hired you? Who was your contact person from the city of Lawrence?
We met with, and it's in here, Mayor DePena and Octavian Spanner.
Interesting. And I have a question for the attorney, but another question that I have for you, sir, is it seems like you interview less individuals than the other investigation. How many did you interview?
Well, I can tell you, we interviewed William Castro, Michael Owens,
So,
Lieutenant Razzo, Sergeant Samard, Lieutenant Rossi, Attorney Houghton, Attorney Foley, Mark Ianello. Again, we were trying to determine how this expanded. We weren't trying to, didn't have a target of an investigation. And I think what's important for you folks to know is that at no point in time did anybody from the city, not the mayor, not Octavian Spanner, neither Attorney Houghton or Foley or Mark Ianello, did anyone try to direct us or interfere with our investigation. Every time we visited City Hall, it was welcoming, it was friendly, it was professional. Phone calls were returned. Materials that we asked for were provided immediately. So,
it looks like that they were more friendly with your company, it's a company, with your consulting agency than with Mr. Bennett Consulting. It
Could
looks
be
like,
my-
according to what you just said, and I didn't ask that, you mentioned it. My other concern is that you interview more people from the city than the actual individuals involved in this case. Is that accurate? You just gave me a count of how many city
Right.
employees you interview.
we weren't investigating any individual. We were investigating how the investigation expanded. That was it. That was all we were doing. Nobody was the target of our investigation. We weren't asked to investigate this person or that person or reinvestigate what Mr. Bennett did. We were asked to determine how it expanded and if there was any collusion that would have interfered or somehow invalidated what Mr. Bennett did. That's what we did.
Can you repeat how many people you interviewed from the city? I lost count.
Okay, I didn't give a number, I named one
Yeah,
name.
I was counting.
Probably seven.
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 We got 8.
More than that.
We got 8.
Eight.
That was close.
And how many people from the police department? How many officers?
3.
Wow. Just for the record, that's a lot of city's employees. And once again, I'm going to mention that the administration was more friendly with you than the other consulting agency.
Could be my
Thank
charming
you.
personality.
Thank you, Council President.
Council President?
Councilor Vice President Infante?
Thank you. This is actually for both, Mr. Rob, I can't think of your last name right now, and Mr. Bennett. So can I have both of them at the podium, please? I'm going to start off with you, Mr. Bennett. While you were answering my colleague's question, you mentioned that communication between your agency and Mr. Castro was done through his attorney.
That's correct.
At any point, did you have any direct communication with Mr. Castro?
No, I did not.
Okay. Now, Rob, please correct me if I'm wrong.
It's on one of the yellow.
On 2 occasions, December 2nd and December 17th, I have here that you've received correspondence directly from Mr. Castro. Is this true?
Yes.
Okay. were these two occasions the only two occasions that you communicated with Mr. Castro directly?
And the 14th of November when he was interviewed.
Okay, thank you. So the reason why this is interesting to me, because the Maverick report, the Maverick agency, is supposed to be another independent agency. But to me, it's interesting how when it came to Bennett's investigation, Castro would not make any communication with you unless it was through his attorney. This is also an investigation that has completely has a legal component. But he seemed very comfortable to communicate with you directly.
Not the target of my investigation, nor was he advised in writing that there could be potential criminal implications to the allegations. We weren't investigating any one individual, period. So we were investigating how it expanded and whether or not there was collusion, period.
I
No
understand.
collusion.
I understand that. I understand that. So, the other part of why this is interesting was because the administration publicly communicated to the community and also to city councilors that the investigation was not done. The investigation overall stems from the Castro situation. Now, if your name is being brought up in any investigation, while you are the main person or not, you would think to stay on the safe side, you would continue communication through your attorney, because you never know, unless there's some familiarity between that agency or that individual and the person.
Are you asking me a question, or are you making?
I'm making a statement. This is a
Okay.
statement.
There
This
is
is
no-
how
there
I
is
read it.
Absolutely no connection. The first time I met William Castro was on November 14th, when he responded to my office and was interviewed by myself and Rob Budrick. First time I met him. No connection whatsoever, period. In fact, I don't know anybody in the city of Lawrence, period, to include the police officers. And I was a police officer not too far down the road in Salem, New Hampshire for 25 years. I don't know anybody. So there is no connection to anyone.
I understand that, but do you see why it could be seen kind of suspicious?
I don't, because again, he wasn't the target of my investigation. Okay, that was made very clear to everybody. You are not the target of my investigation. Our job is to try to find out how this expanded and whether or not there was collusion. And I think our findings are pretty clear that that wasn't the case.
Through the Madam Vice President, do you mind just one quick question, fam? Do you mind expanding on what you just mentioned, the findings of your investigation?
Sure. Key findings: no evidence of collusion. No definitive evidence of collusion involving Michael Owens, former HR Director Daniel Bennett, or members of the Lawrence Police Department Superior Officer Union was found. Allegations of personal connections or biases influencing the investigation were unsubstantiated. Significant procedural missteps. I don't know that I want to mention names here.
Just cross the names.
Just scratch the names.
Just scratch the names, yes.
Lapses in judgment, including careless handling of confidential documents and forwarding in writing several unsupported allegations. Michael Owens constrained Chief Castro's interview scheduling without accommodating legal representation. Daniel Bennett submitted findings and recommendations without a formal interview of William Castro, undermining the completeness of the investigation. There seems to be some confusion on whether Mr. Castro refused to show up or didn't want to show up without legal counsel. I understand the point that you're trying to make. I wasn't investigating William Castro. Mr. Bennett was. Big difference.
But in your introduction, you mentioned that you were doing this.
I'm sorry?
In your introduction, you mentioning that you're expanding the investigation.
No. The primary purpose of this investigation was to determine whether collusion among specific parties compromised the integrity of the investigation conducted by Daniel Bennett of Comprehensive Investigations and Consulting. Not reinvestigating what Mr. Bennett did. Not at all. We didn't interview the same people. We interviewed people that may have knowledge of how it expanded, which we concluded in our report how it expanded. It's not a matter of national security how it expanded, but the problem that you have in this city, and I think that you'll probably agree with this, is very, very, very poor communication. So if you go to our recommendations, I think you'll see what the recommendations were and what they conclude, that that is a major portion of it, a major problem. And it's not one party. There's plenty enough blame to go around. So, and again, you're not the Lone Ranger. You're not the only municipality that has that issue.
Thank you. Council President, I still
Councilor
have the floor.
Suarez Infante.
Thank you. I think, Mr. Bennett, that was all, all set for you. I want to go back to the Post letter, and I want to bring back Attorney Hooton. Attorney, when you received this Post letter, who did you forward the letter to?
The mayor and Octavian Spanner.
Those, only them two?
Yes,
Only them two?
yes.
Are you sure?
Upon my initial release, yes. If it was later released from my office, it could be, but
I have here Octavian Spanner, Mayor DePena, and Claudia Hoyos.
the mayor's confidential secretary,
Okay.
yes, I'm sorry.
Now, what I would like to know, why didn't the city council receive a copy, knowing that we had a pending special meeting the next day about this exact topic? This is a question, do you believe this would have been good information for the council to have ahead of time coming into this meeting?
Okay, it's my understanding that you were going to talk to both parties, which were the Maverick investigation as well as the Bennett investigation, about their investigations, not about Post, not talking about Post. This is what the nature of this investigation was.
But this letter refers to the Maverick investigation,
It refers to,
so it's still related in some way.
it's
very deep.
referring to allegations of a police officer acting inappropriately. That's what it's referring to.
Okay, well, in this letter,
On the investigation.
But my understanding, again, this is.
In this
was
letter-
all about Mr. Castro. Once it strays from Mr. Castro,
Madam Vice President, you still have the floor.
in this letter, Post directly quotes lines from the investigation.
Yes, it
So this is related to the investigation. So the council should have received it. As a city attorney that works for the city, that doesn't work for anyone particular, as you always say when you're in front of us, the city council, or at least the city council president and vice president, should have received a copy of this.
okay. I immediately sent it to the mayor's office. I did not
Okay.
receive a response from the mayor's office. When it was requested by Council Luzon, it was given to Council Luzon.
My next question for you, Attorney Hooton. One of the conclusions that the Myrick report includes is to have to create a procedure on how things should be reported to Post. In the letter from Post, they included the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 6E, Section 3A5, that says otherwise, that anyone can report to them. If we were to create a process, how do we, I guess, violate that Massachusetts general law?
We're not looking to violate, what I would suggest is that there's a lot of police procedures that I believe should be reviewed, and we should get them correct. Post is a brand-new organization. There's a lot of confusion of what they do. There's a lot of confusion on reporting. I would suggest that we educate everybody about it, but I'm not an expert on Post.
Okay, so I want to posts a new agency, et cetera, et cetera. But the Massachusetts general law is the Massachusetts general law. We are not above our Commonwealth's laws.
Correct.
So again, how would that interfere or violate Massachusetts general law?
How would what violate it? I'm sorry.
If we were to establish a procedure, a communication
No, we
procedure.
would establish a procedure that complies with all rules and regulations of Post and all Massachusetts general laws. That's what we would do when we create a procedure. We'd make sure it was a legal procedure. We would vet it, we would submit it to Post, we'd probably submit it for review by outside, somebody that knows this. That's how we create a procedure. You don't just think of it a whole lot, you get information, you take, sometimes you even get whatever the communities do and you follow.
Okay, well. For the future, as a city attorney, these are important documents that members of the city council should have when we are going to talk about topics. Because, again, this is related to the Maverick report, and it is, yes, it talks about employee retaliation, which is also included in the first report. So all of this is connected. And I have the entire email chain from you, from Post, from Mr. Spanner and Rob here. So I know, no communication to the city council. But I'm gonna conclude there with that topic. I have another question for you, Attorney Hooton. In the Maverick report,
Madam Vice President, before you go to that question, it is important to expand on something that you just mentioned right now, which is the communication. What I have seen is that most of the information that is supposed to be coming to the city council have to be screened out by the mayor's office. It happened today. You guys saw the email early today, but it happened many other times. Is this was the case? Do you need to give it to them and then get an authorization from them to release it to the city council?
All information is to be given to the mayor's office immediately.
So, and then after they review it, that's when you can release anything to us?
No, after they review, we have a conference on what to do with it. It's not who we review it to. Sometimes it's not reviewable again. Every correspondence is different. There may be information that you're not privy to, that you can't be privy to. I can't give a generalization. When I get information from other agencies, I get information on cases. Most of the information I receive regarding things I don't give to the mayor, I don't give to you. It's to do with a case, it's part of my job, that's what I handle. It's internally handled. I don't send everything that comes to I get thousands of communications every day. It does not get distributed to anybody, it stays in my office. An attorney says, I want to settle the case, I then send something back.
No,
that
we're
says,
talking
"Let's talk
about
about
these
it."
specifically.
I understand, but you're making the assumption that I am some sort of a gatekeeper for the mayor's office. I am not. I am a gatekeeper for the city.
And I understand that when that happened, if it happened with his staff, director staff, that's fine. It happened today with that stay of the city. They didn't send it to us. They provided to us yesterday. I won both versions. They waiting for the mayor to say yes. But that's public information. Sometimes we need to differentiate what is public and what is not. And if we really want to have an open communication and have to run a city, and then that need to change.
I understand.
Madam Vice President.
thank you, Council President. And this is a bit of a confusion for me. The next question, so I'm hoping that you can clarify with the yes or no. In the Maverick report, it is said that Castro believed that he was set up by some officers because they wanted an internal chief, and not him. In the Bennett report, there is a situation where it is said that an officer was picked up by Castro, an officer was asked to have a private meeting with the mayor and his residents, basically using fear tactic, and to me, the way I'm reading that's another form of setup. And I want you to tell me, maybe am I reading this wrong? Am I interpreting it the wrong way? But I'm seeing that as a form of a setup, for the other party, the other way around.
Again, I'm unaware what the purpose of that was. It could also be interpreted that someone was concerned about a sick officer. That's the way people, they spin it to whichever way they want.
How's Bennett?
Can I get Bennett's answer on this too as well, please? In your report, when an officer stated that he had a meeting with the mayor, or he was requested by the mayor to talk about officers supposedly setting him up to get him fired, etc. And then the next day, Castro picked him up to talk about the same thing. The way that I interpreted that, and I actually want a genuine expertise response, because I could be interpreting this the wrong way, which can happen. The way that I was interpreting that compared to the Bennett report, the Maverick report, where Castro alleged that he was set up, that this was also a type of setup for that officer to kind of scare him into going on Castro's side for chief so that he would be okay.
I think the way I looked at that, and this was from the officer himself, it was backed up by another officer also stating that he had been told, the second statement is hearsay, but the first one was directly to me, I apologize, was that he was intimidated, that he was sick and on the edge, and that when former Chief Castro showed up at his house, he was telling him that there were other people out after him, and that they couldn't trust the white officers. And so, in that way, it was an intimidation that he was putting onto that officer, and showing that was certainly detrimental to the good operation of the Lawrence Police Department. And along with that, which was backed up by another situation, was after former Chief Castro was suspended by post. He wasn't supposed to be talking to anybody about any police issue. And he had already been at a meeting where he was discussing, where he had been discussing the budgeting for the Lawrence Police Department. So it wasn't just an isolated incident where he was visiting a sick friend. He was over there trying to manipulate what was going on and gain allies. And he picked out somebody who, unfortunately, had some emotional problems at that time.
So can that also be seen as a setup?
I apologize.
Can that also be seen as a setup?
I just wouldn't use those words, but,
I don't know.
Yeah, one sentence before that happened, it's also mentioned that this person was asked to visit the mayor's house.
that's correct.
Can you expand on that, please?
The day before Deputy Chief Castro picked him up, for the only time in his life, this officer was asked to go over to the mayor's house. And he went over to the mayor's house and was given a lot of the same information that former Chief Castro also gave him in the car ride around the neighborhood when they were together. So it was over to the mayor's house, then the next day it was picked up by former Chief Castro to do the same thing.
Did the mayor mention at any point that he was suspended? I read that, I guess, on the.
I can't recall, and I apologize for that.
I read that. That's there. But I mean, Madam Vice President, may I continue?
for it to come back, and then I'll ask for the floor. Because it was a follow-up to something that you said, and then I just.
Council President.
Before we go that way, we're gonna go this way, and that's Councilor Rosario.
Thank you. Through you, Council President. Mr. Bennett, after you cease or you stop your investigation, how many days did you inform or give the time for the mayor to revise what you close? Because according to your contract, it says that the mayors need to accept it or deny your investigation. So after you close it, how many days did it took you to bring it or send it to the mayor's office? And did he accept the report or he denied it?
Well, I'm going to say this about that. When I was told to stop my investigation, I sent it within 4 days. And he, till today, can deny or accept that. I don't know that he has accepted it. So he's got, I guess, whatever, October 13th. So he's had 3.5 months to accept or deny the investigation, I guess.
Thank you.
Council President.
Right, any other question?
Yeah.
Councilor
For
Councilor
you, Mr.
Santiago.
Bennett. Yeah. I would like to know about the retaliation and intimidation with the police officer, and I would like to know how many officer and police did you make the interview for them? How many?
For that particular allegation, there were 2 officers. For the intimidation, there were 2 officers that were interviewed for that particular allegation. For the overall investigation for the 4, well, I was hired for 4 different issues. For that, I interviewed 17 police officers and 1 civilian.
And how many times do you try to contact Castro for the interview?
I don't want to exaggerate, so I'll say 7 times.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, I go back to.
I wanted to hear that question again and that answer. I'm sorry, I didn't fully understand.
How many times he tried to contact the chief acting Castro for the interview?
Yeah, I believe I tried to contact, and this is his attorney. I sent at least 7 emails to his attorney, all of them involving setting up the interview.
Yeah, thanks.
So you got answer? Councilor.
Follow the question
Councilor Reyes.
to you, Mr. President. How many people you interview in total?
18.
18. And what is the description through the interview to the 18 different persons? What you mentioned right now was 2 for intimidation, and what is the other?
Yeah, it was 2 for intimidation, and the reason I interviewed those 2 for intimidation is one had sort of what was, a firsthand knowledge of being told about what had happened to the officer that was allegedly intimidated, and then the officer himself. So I interviewed both officers. One, the person who was telling me that they were intimidated, and then also to see if their story was consistent with what they had told another officer. Yes. A number of them were for the car chase. Anybody who was involved that day with the car chase, and by that I mean radio call, stopped somebody, heard something, they were all interviewed on that, about that car chase. And then I interviewed the civilian and a number of other people, and I'm going to say 2 other people, with regards to whether or not Former Chief Castro had been attempting to sort of circumvent the civil service system and trying to get people hired, using his influence as the chief to do that. And then I interviewed two people with regards to whether or not there was some type of retaliation being taken on by Chief Castro against other people. And some of those people overlapped because they might have something to say about the car chase and also have something to say about the hiring process.
Okay, there are another person you interview connect different issues to the same issue, the same, I'm very confused now.
Okay,
You interview the people and the people respond to allegate for any kind of position when they try to hire new police officers?
no, there was four things. There was four things. There was the car chase and what Chief Castro did about his police report with the car chase. The second issue was whether or not there was intimidation going on with the officer. The third part was whether there were three people that Chief Castro was attempting to get employed within the Lawrence Police Department and using his influence as the chief of police to do that, to break the rules. And then the fourth part was whether or not Chief Castro was in some way retaliating against officers who were opposed to him. So those were the four issues that I got an email from Mike Owens saying, we would like you to give us a proposal. These are your four issues you would be looking at.
They connect different issues at the same case.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you for clarification. Another question I have, I'm very curious to know, how many officers respond for the emergency call that day? How many officers? I announcement, we have some emergency, and I decide to attend, but how many more officers decide to attend to the same issue? It's, because I saw in the media a lot of, not only cars go on wrong way or wrong street.
The pursuit.
The person, yeah. I saw in the media another officer do the same violation to the
Policy.
policies.
Okay, and that's a very good question, because part of the job was three officers, including former Chief Castro, were notified that they were respondents of the allegations that they were in the chase. Another officer, I don't want to get past where I'm supposed to be going here, but I did an investigation of three separate officers and made findings on all three separate officers on the chase.
The another two officers attending in response to the emergency call, and they don't have any back or any consequences about this action, or they do normally what they're supposed to do?
They, of the three officers, one of them, it was a sustained finding against that officer, but I'm not gonna say that officer's name. Under the Lawrence rules, and under almost every police department I know, there's a thing called mitigation, so that when you recommend the punishment, you decide whether or not there's any mitigation to it. So there was punishment for this officer, but the mitigation towards it was, he was getting calls from the chief of police that the chief of police was in a high-speed chase, and that's why he got into the high-speed chase. But it was sustained against that officer, and that officer did receive a punishment. Or actually, I shouldn't say that. I recommended a punishment for that officer. I don't know what happened with that officer, so I apologize on that. But I did recommend a punishment for that officer. The third officer, he responded, But when you watch the videos, and I watched a lot of videos, he actually didn't break any traffic rules. So he was stopping at the lights, he was under the speed limit, so was he in the chase? Yes, but my findings were he wasn't breaking any traffic rules, so I wasn't gonna sustain it against him.
I'm very curious because Chief Castro break the traffic rule. Another officer do the same because break the traffic rule. Now was only Chief Castro, but I don't understand why we only be against Castro and not connect with the another officer.
In my report, all three officers are addressed. And all three officers are addressed. I don't want to say the officers' names. All three officers are addressed. The reasoning for why I sustained the allegation that he shouldn't have been in the speed chase for another officer is addressed in there. I did take into consider mitigation. In other words, hey, why was he doing it? Okay? Was he just hearing over the radio like Chief Castro that it was a bad check? Go ahead.
Could I just state that he does
Attorney
not
Hinton.
discipline anyone.
No.
That's not his job.
No, he recommend.
He just does a recommendation. So discipline is up to the city of Lawrence, the police chief of the city of Lawrence, the mayor of the city of Lawrence. So he can't answer for that because his job is just to give us a recommendation. So whether one person gets treated one way or another, that's not up to Mr. Bennett. Mr. Bennett's only obligation is to give us a report.
And as
It's a recommendation, but I want to know, and I want for clarification on my question, and I want to know because, they people,
Councilor Reyes, you need to push the button. The button. Now you got it.
so, I can repeat again everything? Because I love to do that. Yo estoy
No, you
very
have the-
excited
you
to
have the
make
floor.
question and asking and looking for clarification because, Mr. Bennett, yes.
And as a matter of fact, Madam Councilor Reyes, none of his recommendations were
It's
imposed, actually.
I know, but I have question.
Yeah,
Privilege, I want to do that because I have my right.
of course.
Thank you. I know, but I continue to, you mentioned before, you can close the report without any interview with the principal person.
Correct.
Yes, and I lost to know why, because I want to have the right to receive my interview. I know you tried to contact him 7 times, but you mentioned through the report, he mentioned he not attending because he don't be ready because he don't have the attorney or something like that?
His attorney sent me an email back. We had contact. His attorney said, this is a bad day for me. I moved it, okay? Well, first, I sent his attorney an email that said, pick a day. Give me some days. I'll do it on one of the days you want. I didn't get a response. Then I picked a day. His attorney said, no, that's a bad day for me. So I picked another day, and his attorney said, no, that's a bad day for me. So I said, how about give me some days? So we picked a day, late October. And as soon as I did that, and we had that date, his attorney said, no, you don't have a right to talk to him. You don't have a right. He asked me, what's my right? I said, well, the city of Lawrence, hired me, essentially. And he said, no, that's not enough. You don't have a right to do that. Then I got back in touch with Mike Owens. I said, I've never had this happen ever to me, but even though I'm the independent investigator, the attorney for the respondents saying you don't have a right to interview because he doesn't have to answer my questions, right? If there's criminal action, and there's potential criminal action against Chief Castro, but he has to show up. Okay. So Mike Owens then sent the attorney a email that said, you got to show up at Attorney Bennett's office on such and such a day, okay? Then his lawyer sent back, Chief Castro's lawyer sent back an email that said, not only doesn't Attorney Bennett have a right to talk to him, you don't have a right to talk to him. The only one who can order him to go in there is the mayor, so we're not talking to you. Then Owens gets fired, and then before we even would try to set up another meeting, then he doesn't show up, Castro doesn't show up. I sent him an email, another email, his lawyer, said, hey, listen, you didn't show up. We're gonna continue the investigation, and when we finish, we're gonna write our report. And he could have answered and said, hey, I'll meet with you next week, and I would have done it. But he had already indicated he was not going to talk to us. And then I got an email from Octavian Spanner saying, halt your investigation. So that was the end of it. It wasn't a question of us not wanting to talk to him. It was a question of him saying we didn't have a right to talk to him. He wasn't going to talk to us. And then being told by the mayor, you got to stop your investigation. Halt your investigation. That's right. That's right. That's correct. That's correct. Okay.
Council President,
Mr. Bennett,
Good evening.
who hired you to do the investigation? Who hired you?
Mike Owens was the one who got in touch with me originally. He sent me asking for the proposal. I'd say they produced a contract that was supposed to be, and actually Attorney Houghton probably can explain this better than I can, that was supposed to be for me to do multiple different investigations, which was signed by the mayor. But this investigation being one of them, the one I had returned the proposal, had filed a proposal on.
You were hired by Michael O. to do the investigation through the mayor, but you were supposed to report to the mayor.
I was supposed to make a report back to the mayor, but I'm an independent investigator, so my report is my report. He can say, I don't believe your report, I don't like your report, that's the way it goes, but I don't work for the mayor. The mayor can stop my investigation by saying halt, which he did, but at that point, he gets a report of where my investigation is.
But they didn't say to stop the investigation. They said to hold on the investigation.
Right. And
So
halt,
why?
And that's a transitive verb meaning to stop. And it's from Middle English. You can go back and look at all the way back through.
Councilor Levy, he didn't say hold. Hold, not hold.
The hold, to hold the investigation.
No hold. Can you spell the word he used?
HALT.
Hold, yes. To hold the investigation, not to
Yeah.
stop.
Well, but it's a transitive verb meaning stop.
I'm sorry, let me talk.
Levy, you have the floor.
Thank you. Can you continue, please?
Sure, it's a transitive verb meaning stop.
Did you call the mayor and ask him if he want to stop or hold?
I did not.
You did not.
I did not.
Did you call the mayor and
What is
find out why Mr. Castro doesn't want to come and talk to you?
I did not.
You did not. Because I think so that he was the one, that should have all the information and talk to you or give it to you whatever direction that has to be taken, according to what I can see in here.
I'm not sure of that question, but can you just repeat what you mean? I'll do the
saying-
best I can.
And Mr. Castro refused to talk to you why you didn't call the mayor, because he was the person that should be given to you or to Castro, you know, and speak with him regarding why he doesn't want to show or speak with you.
Okay, so I have two answers to that. One is, I was speaking to Castro's attorney. He was the one who was making the representations to me. The other thing is, I'm an independent investigator. I don't report to anybody. I don't necessarily call up. I'm not looking to have my investigation interfered with. If you're saying that I should have called up the mayor and interviewed him, then
Not
maybe...
to interview.
Well, that's the only way I would have talked to him. Sit down with him, put him on tape, and interview. That's the way we do it. We always, shouldn't say always, but overwhelmingly, if I'm going to talk to somebody, it's either I get something in writing or I sit down. When I talked to Octavian Spanner and the city attorney after the investigation, I didn't tape it, but I had my assistant there typing up everything that was said in that meeting.
Every time that you call either the attorney or Mr. Castro to interview him, did you give a different time, different day to do it?
Did every time I do it. I can't say every time I did it, but I did it several different times. First was, you pick a date. Second was, this is the date. Bad date for the attorney. This is the date. Bad day for the attorney. Fourth time, give me any other date that you will in October. Then I sent back another one saying, okay, we can do it on this date. Then he said, no, my client's not talking to you. My client, you don't have a right to talk to my client.
Did you?
Councilor Levy, just for the record, and at that point, at some point on the investigation, you mentioned, or the investigation mentioned that only the mayor can authorize my client to, I don't have the report in front of me, but I mean,
You're
But I
right
see
on.
here, yes,
what isn't there?
that's only the mayor was the one who authorized.
Yeah, but at that point, that we have the HR director that was the person in communication with both parties.
When did you notify Mr. Castro that he was investigated?
I never notified Mr. Castro.
You
Mr.
never-
Owens notified him on September 25th that he
And-
was being investigated.
and when did
there
you
was
start the
attempts before
investigation?
then.
Councilor Levy,
I'm sorry.
let him respond.
There was attempts by Mr. Owens before that to serve him, and he was, my understanding is trying to avoid them, but I never would be in the role of, letting somebody know that they're being investigated. That would always be the city or town or sheriff's department or college or
Mr.
school.
Bennett,
that would do
Mr. Bennett.
that job.
Just to the mic. We've been
I'm-
fighting an
I'm
interference.
doing terrible at that.
No, you're good, you're good.
Did you? Okay, you said that you were investigating 3 people
For the car,
regarding.
For the chasing.
for the chasing.
Yes. But only one of the report, or this report was completely focused just only on Mr. Castro.
No, in my report, I gave an answer to all 3 people that were served as respondents. I made findings, and I put them in my report.
So why we are practically, I'm gonna say, use the word chasing only Mr. Castro, because whatever that we have practically go directly to Mr. Castro.
Okay? I
Can
made-
you repeat the previous statement that you said?
Sure. In my report, there are 3 people that were respondents with regards to the car chase. I interviewed the other 2, came in with their union representative. They did not have an attorney, to my recollection, but they came in with their union representatives. I interviewed them both, and I made findings. On one of them, I sustained that he shouldn't have been in the car chase either. And on the third one, I didn't sustain it because when I watched the videos, and I watched a lot of videos, He never broke any traffic rules that I could tell. So it wasn't just Chief Castro, it was all three of them.
What was the finding on Chief Castro related to the chasing?
It was sustained that he didn't have a right to do that, and it was based on the fact, a lot of factors, but one big factor was there was a call that had gone out with regards to the passing of the bad check. And it was twice within the call that was out, that was being received by all the officers, that it was a bad check or a false check. And it gave the description of the person who had passed it. So you couldn't have gotten involved in the chase to find that person unless you heard at the same time that it was a bad check or a false check. The description of the individual with their green hoodie, their age, what street they're on, is all mixed in with it being a bad check or a false check. It's an impossibility not to be able to, if you hear one, you hear the other. You hear it's a false check, or you don't have the description of the person to chase, and he's chasing the person. Therefore, he has to know. He has to know that it's a false check or a bad check. And that is not a bank robbery. And that's what he said. He was concerned that it was a bank robbery. But he had heard it was a false check and a bad check.
And what was the
Well,
recommendation?
Sorry, but I haven't.
Yeah, what was the recommendation?
It was 90 days suspended for getting in the chase, but lying in his police report saying that he believed it was a bank robbery, it was that he be terminated, because that's a criminal felony in this state.
All right, Councilor Levy.
Thank you. Okay, so you have said that this is a criminal felony in the state,
Yes.
you know. But it looks like that you have a lot of information regarding the case. Except that you don't have the information from the person that you were supposed to investigate.
That's correct.
So how do you close a case without having or preparing a report without having, you know, the information from the person that we really need to investigate?
Okay, because that person refused to meet with me.
Well, he refused to meet.
Yeah,
or
Councilor
he didn't-
Levy.
I'm sorry.
No. Let him respond,
Okay.
because you asked a question.
Okay, that person refused to meet with me, and then I was stopped from doing further investigation. However, I'll just give you an example of, honestly, of the 30 murders that I've tried, most of those murderers did not give a statement to the police, and I still tried them, and 29 of them were convicted. So very many times, I take information, and it's called circumstantial evidence, and if it fits, then I make a decision about what it should be presented. And that's what happens. If he had wanted to talk to me, I would have been overjoyed. If I had been continuing to do the investigation and hadn't been halted, then he would have had more time to do that. But he still did have time once he got my letter saying you didn't show up. I'm sorry, the attorney got my letter saying you didn't show up. But within 2 days, the investigation got halted when I came up to interview more people. Somehow, Octavian Spanner got my cell phone. I don't know how. But he got my cell phone, and he called me up when I got to Internal Affairs.
Councilor Levy?
So, from me, your report is incomplete in this side. So, the principal person has not been interviewed. You don't have his own version, and we cannot get, I don't know. How they said in here that you are not guilty until, what is that? The other part?
You're innocent until you're proven guilty.
Exactly.
Okay,
And that was the investigation.
fair enough.
Council President.
No, let her finish.
I'm okay for now.
Okay, let's go to the second round now. Second round, we have Councilor Vice President Infante, and then we have Councilor Reyes, and then we have Councilor LaPlante, and then we have Councilor Rosario. And then we have Councilor Luzon. Okay. So Councilor President Infante, you have the floor.
Thank you, through you, Council President.
Am I still up here, or am I?
Yes,
It's up
just
to her.
for one more thing, for one more thing.
We have
I want to
the other
read-
investigation as well here, if you have any questions.
I want to reiterate what Mr. Bennett mentioned earlier. Even if Castro would have showed up for his interview, he could plead the fifth and not say anything. And we would still be arguing that it's incomplete because there is no statement from Castro, when he could still say that he doesn't want to say anything with the attorney there. So either option, we still wouldn't have, because my opinion, he probably would, or maybe he would have spoken, I don't know. But the point is that whether he was there or not, he would have had the option to not speak. And then what? We still say that the investigation is incomplete? No, we don't. Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Before, I want to hear from, and before I call him up through you, Council President, to the podium. I'm almost over. Thank you, Mr. Bennett. It's from Sergeant Samard, because he's one of the people that has been questioned in both reports. But before we go to Sergeant Samard, I want to read the introduction from the Maverick report, word for word. Maverick Investigative Services and RCB and Associates were engaged by the City of Lawrence, Mass. to investigate the circumstances surrounding the expansion of the William Castro investigation. Initially centered on a motor vehicle pursuit policy valuation, the investigation extended to allegations of untruthfulness, unethical hiring practices, intimidation, and retaliation. The primary purpose of this investigation was to determine whether collusion among specific parties compromised the integrity of the investigation conducted by Daniel Bennett of Comprehensive Investigations and Consulting. The reason why I've emphasized primary was the word primary means main, does not mean sole. If this investigation's sole purpose was to determine whether collusion happened or not, Mr. Castro wouldn't have been interviewed for 6 hours. Because why is someone that supposedly you're not interested in was interviewed for 6 hours? I don't understand that. I just wanted to put that on the record. Actually, yeah, can you answer that, please? And can you
Assumptions are not helpful, and they're way off base. Okay?
Fair question.
He was there for 6 hours because I let him talk and talk and talk and talk. He came in with a suitcase-sized tote with a bunch of documents. He then produced a 205-page rebuttal to Mr. Bennett's investigation with 65 exhibits. I read that. You got my 441-page report. I read probably 10 times the amount of pages. That's why he was there for 6 hours. I listened to him. It doesn't mean that I believed or disbelieved what he was saying. I listened to him, just as I allowed everybody else that I spoke to tell me what they wanted to tell me. I had specific questions on how it expanded. Did he have some theories on that? He did. Did I find any merit? Did I find a finding? I did not. Okay? So again, the assumptions are very dangerous and way off base. Got to be careful with that, because assumptions are not facts.
Well, also, I mean, word dictionary meanings, that's where my assumption is coming from your introduction. When you, sole goal and primary goal, like, are two different, the meaning primary is a different definition. It's
Correct.
the main goal.
Primary was to see if there was collusion. that interfered with Mr. Bennett's investigation. We were also asked to determine how the investigation expanded.
And how was it expanded, besides the collusion?
Post asked them to expand it, but nobody seemed to know that answer until I interviewed Mr. Owens.
And for the record, what was the reply that you got from Mr. Owens?
He told me that he had a Zoom conference with a member from Post, and that Attorney Foley was present, and they asked him to expand it. To corroborate that, I interviewed Attorney Foley, who corroborated that it was a Zoom meeting with somebody from Post, and it was in Mr. Owens' office that it took place. Mystery solved.
Well, thank you for that clarification.
You're welcome.
I have another
All in my
question for
report.
you. I have another, first of all, you can stop with the attitude.
Well, you have the attitude.
Well, now I
You're
have an
making the assumption.
attitude. Now I have an attitude.
No,
The conversation is through the to me, you talk to me.
Through you, Council President. My next question for Rob is, Mr. Moran.
You have the floor.
And can you clarify as to why the email from Lieutenant Lasso was included pertaining to the police search concerns that he had? Because from my understanding, this does not have that email did not have anything to do with this investigation either.
no, but I'm glad you brought that up, because I'd like to make a very important point on that. It was forwarded to me, so I included it, okay? But in that email, and it doesn't surprise me, because Lieutenant Rasso went to law school and he's bar admitted. He said, my observations and my concerns. That's an opinion. He didn't put it out there as fact. His observations and his concerns. Not a thing wrong with that. Not one thing wrong with that. And I believe that if you ask Lieutenant Rasso, who I know is here, he would tell you that that's exactly what I said about it. Okay? It was put in my report because it was forwarded to me. And in those 441 pages, which include 24 exhibits, you will see, and if you want to go to Exhibit 10, you can see the communications between Mr. Owens, Attorney Jacobs, Mr. Bennett, all in there. Okay? That's why I know it's quite a volume of stuff to go through, but that's what we did. That's our report, and I went through much more material to do that. Again, our findings are clear, the scope of what we did is clear, and our recommendations are clear. So I don't appreciate the assumption, okay, because you're assuming something that is completely wrong. Completely wrong. There is no connection between Maverick Investigative Services, RCB and Associates, and anyone in this city. Anyone. Nor did we have a dog in the race, nor did we have a target that we were looking at. We did exactly what we were asked to do, and we did not go beyond the scope of what we were asked to do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Through you, Council President, I would now like
Councilor Vice President Infante?
to bring up Sergeant Mike Samard, who was involved with both interviews, and get his point of view on the differences between the reports.
Good evening, Council. My name is Sergeant Mike Samad. I'm the Union President of the Superior Officers. Thank you for having us tonight and inviting us here.
Can you, Sergeant Samar, go over, I mean, obviously we have it here and we read it, but your interview process, your experience when being interviewed by the Maverick agency, and then we did already talk about the Bennett report a little bit prior meeting, but if you can summarize your experience with that as well, just to make the overall connection.
Sure, and I'd like to thank Mr. Bennett for being in and apologize from our union for having his integrity being brought to question by this administration. You can compare what I feel was a valid investigation and then the subsequent cover-up. And it's obvious and it's disheartening to the men and women of our department who keep getting dragged through the mud. William Castro was an unqualified correctional officer. who dreamed of being a police officer, and that dream was fulfilled by this mayor for whatever reason. He became a police chief. After becoming the police chief of staff, he became a police chief. Never have attended a full-time academy. His lack of qualification showed on that February day when he got into a police chase for a bad check, and then lied in his report, and then exposed the public to all these safety risks in these officers who actually followed him into battle that day for no reason whatsoever. The city then covered that up after he lied in his report. The city then covered it up, in my opinion, when they said, nothing to see here, I did an investigation, nothing to see here, go back to work, officers. If that was me, I would have been fired on the spot, no doubt in my mind. It was reported to Post about the cover-up and the violation of policies and the subsequent lies in the report and the hiring process, the two-tier internal affairs systems. So Post says to the city of Lawrence, you need to investigate this. So Mike Bennett, another person I want to apologize to, whose integrity was called into question by this administration, who everyone in the city adores because he was the right person for the job, he hires Bennett, Mr. Bennett, of CIC, with an unblemished background, as we heard. He does a thorough investigation of 18 people, including 17 officers. And he records every interview. I might add that Mr. Castro's 6-hour interview was not recorded at his request. Why? Why? Mine was. I had no say in it. Mine was. Lieutenant Razzo's was. Everyone's audio interview was recorded. Mr. Bennett finishes the report. Now, I might add that during this chase and soon after, within 2 weeks of that investigation, of that cover-up, William Castro tasked our video analysis unit manager, Angel Mejia, with the biggest download of video evidence that this department has ever seen during 2 homicides. William Castro's sole intent was to follow me and Mo Aguilar, Captain Aguilar, around the station for 2 weeks, and he wanted that to help his cause. During 2 homicide investigations, he's tasking Angel Mejia, who has more important things to do, obviously, with following me and Captain Aguilar around the station. Did Roy Vass get that same sort of allowances when allegations were made against him? Chief Roy Vass did more for this police department than any police chief I ever worked for in 29 years. And because Chief Castro wanted to be a chief, a hit was put on him, along with many other officers. And it continues today, where I heard another retaliation investigation is going to come up on one of our officers again. Investigation was ensued by Mr. Bennett, a very thorough one, I might add. And keep in mind, I've never been the subject of an internal affairs investigation. I went because I had to. I was ordered to. It's part of internal affairs investigations. Castro felt he didn't have to because he's getting $210,000 as a provisional chief. He can do whatever he wants. And he's done whatever he wanted to, for some reason. So Mr. Bennett does the investigation. He can't finish it, according to some councils, according to the mayor, but he did finish it. Because like he said before, whether the respondent or the suspect cooperates, that's fine. But if he doesn't, he's going to go with what the evidence presents. And it did. It presented itself, as you can see. Harvard educated, first assistant district attorney, director of public safety, 30 homicides. And our city travels to New Hampshire to hire Maverick Investigations. Did anybody do a background check on Maverick Investigations? I did. And I suggest you do the same. They call him because the cover-up, what they got from Bennett was not what they wanted. Because Castro was their guy, for whatever reason. Some here may know the reason, but there's leverage there for something. Why, I don't know. But this city suffers to this day. This council suffers to this day. This administration does whatever they want, and they use you to rubber stamp it. Be careful, because this happened in Methuen when I was there, and we're still paying for it. Trust me when I tell you, everyone blamed the council. Everyone. So Mr. Bennett does his investigation. It's complete. They don't like it. They halt it. They stop it. Whatever word you want to use, they stopped it in its tracks. And Octavian Spanner did it. Why did he do it? Well, it's twofold, to protect Castro and to protect himself. And we all know why. How about the recent allegations that came out by Francisco Paulino? I'm just want to get into why we're being tainted, we're being persecuted for the rise of William Castro. All we want is a qualified police chief. So then they hire what I call hitmen out of Salem, New Hampshire to come in and give them what they need to fool you. He can be a chief. They're lying. They don't want anybody from outside. They want someone from the inside. We want someone who's qualified. We're one of the busiest departments in the Commonwealth. We want someone who's qualified, who's been to a full-time police academy. That's it. Someone who rose through the ranks, took the test, knows how to work civil service, knows how to follow rules, knows how to work with the community. Not someone who's politically connected to the point where, how many mayors has he backed? Haverhill mayor, Methuen mayor, now the Lawrence mayor. It worked. He picked the right horse, didn't he? And here he is today. And who gets a contract for a year as a provisional chief? Who does that where he goes from the chief of staff to the chief of police back to the chief of staff? Everybody watching this meeting right now in this Commonwealth is saying, what the heck is going on in Lawrence? What is going on here? It's embarrassing that I have to stand up here and you have to stand up here and you have to question Mr. Bennett about his integrity. Because that's why he's here. I don't get it. So the city didn't like what he had to say. So they hired Maverick, and Maverick comes in.
Right.
So
Councilor
when
Vice
I
President.
interviewed him, and when he interviewed me, I recorded it too. One of my questions was, have you ever worked for EIS Investigations? That's the former chief of Methuen who's currently under indictment. They signed a contract with them last month. There's a lot of, and Castro has political ties to the former chief. And that's where his credentials are out of. That's where he maintains his credentials to be a special police officer out of Methuen. There's a lot of, red flags here. And unfortunately, the mechanism for those red flags are being right here. And you have a city attorney, and I feel bad. I really do. He's put on the hot seat every time. He's trying to figure out who he's got to protect. But I think we all know we got to protect the citizens of Lawrence. And I don't think that's happening. And it's frustrating. And here we are today. So all I know is I had my interview recorded, 6-hour interview with 205 pages. That was just billable hours for the Maverick investigator. That's all that was. That was predetermined, and we said it. The guy was chewing tobacco in a cup, spitting in a cup. I'll buy you a beer when I see you at Tuscan. That's what he says to me. And we have a Harvard-educated director of public safety here before you, who's, I hope, getting paid, because his time is very valuable. It's just frustrating. And again, we're gonna get dragged through it. So I hope I answered your question, Counselor, but when does this end? When is someone held accountable? When are we gonna have oversight? We want the feds to come in here. We need that in our police department. Our trust has just been destroyed in public by this man continuously. When does it end? Because quite frankly, I'm ready to retire. But I don't want to leave the men and women of this department that I put 29 years of my heart and soul into this city. For what? For a guy to play cops and robbers and get into a bank chase. Give me a break. That's what this is about. And it's frustrating.
Thank you. Councilor Vice President, you still have the floor?
Thank you. I have one statement about the city attorney, and then I want to hear from Lieutenant Rasso, because he's been here as well. And this is not for.
Councilor Vice President, let's allow the city attorney. So you have a question for him? You have a statement?
A statement.
Oh, a
Through
statement.
you,
She doesn't have a question for you.
Through you, Council President.
Councilor Vice President.
I'm very disappointed in you, city attorney. I lost faith after receiving that post letter. The way that I'm seeing that is that you play the administration side when it's convenient for you, and you play the city council side when it's convenient for you. That's how I'm seeing it. We could agree to disagree, but I'm just very disappointed because I know that you know better, and you know that communication to the council should have been made. And that's all I'm going to say about that, Council President. And now I would like, if you allow, I would like to hear from Lieutenant Rasso.
Yes, let's keep it short.
Good evening.
Yeah, Lieutenant Russell, can you keep it a little as short as possible?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
We hit everything.
If it is an statement.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I understand. And again, I appreciate we came back. I think everything was hit upon tonight. I think we got to ask ourselves, where are the connections here? You know, I'm glad both parties were here, but, you know, Mike Owens fired, Castro's ordered to come in, Mike Owens fired, and then.
Just avoid that Mike Owens fire because something might happen eventually.
Right. Just a couple highlights from my interview. When I asked the investor confirmed that Octavian Spada hired him, went up to Salem, New Hampshire, who does that? Why do you go to Salem, New Hampshire? So what's the other side here? You know, and then he told me in the interview that, he doesn't mind stating this on the record, that the mayor created some of these problems. He didn't think it was malicious, maybe a touch of incompetence, not realizing, but at the beginning of the interview, he said there was no collusion at all. That was the primary focus here. And then the city asked Maverick if they would settle with Owens, with the HR director, will it affect this investigation? And I like how you asked about my city emails, and I heard the response, but why were they there? I was confused about that. And, you know, we started this thing with retaliation, post confirms retaliation. I think everybody can see through here there is retaliation. Some of the interviews, the city attorneys documented in the Maverick report that it's no secret that DePena and Castro are friends. The city attorney was doing his duty to keep DePena isolated from false allegations, and he, DePena, attempted to interfere. He stated the department was feeding information to Post because they resented Castro because he was an outsider. He confirmed that Jacobs was ducking notices of investigations. And then Mark Iannelli, HR director on 11/22/24, almost 2 months ago, acknowledged that he looked at these forensic download, pretty much said there's nothing there. Why'd the investigation keep going? Castro was interviewed for 6 hours, not recorded, not one mention of any objectively reasonable belief of the pursuit was a bank robbery. Dan Bennett said it best. Nobody heard bank robbery. It never came over the radio. Wouldn't that come up in the 6-hour interview with the second investigation? You know, we hit everything tonight, but it just seems that this is all dragged out, and there's some common denominators here. There's absolute conflicts of interest, wasted money being spent to go to Salem, New Hampshire, then have to hire a mass investigator to do it. Why didn't they just go to the state police for a simple download? If they're talking about collusion and corruption, you know, you might not trust the Lawrence Police Department, but a simple download started this whole thing. And then it evolved into months of hours and wasted resources. Everything was hit tonight, and I think we cleared everything, and I agree with Sergeant Samad. Where do we go from here? You know, I'd like to ask Maverick when he's here, who did he give that report to? You know, that should be an easy answer. I don't know if we can ask him on the record. He had to give that report to somebody, and you know, I know we're going to get an investigation by the city attorney, hopefully, but that report had to come to City Hall 2 weeks ago when we spoke here, and then all that stuff is unredacted, and the stuff that was unredacted about confidential memos, Octavian Spada doing his own investigation. He's not trained to do a police investigation, and then I just found that out because of a leaked report. You know, there was so much cover up here that was disclosed with these open forums, which I like, and this is the way we have to go to figure it out. But where'd that report go? It came on Wednesday. We didn't know anything about it when we were here sitting talking, and then it's on the internet the next day, unredacted. You know, a lot of personal information, a lot of confidential memos. I don't know if we could ask him who he gave it to, or if we wait for the investigation. It should be simple to see what we take.
So just as the question will be, who did you send the report when it came out of your computer to somebody's email?
Well, I did not send it by a computer. I hand-delivered one hard copy and one thumb drive
You hand-delivered a thumb drive and a hard copy.
to City Hall,
To what office?
the mayor's office.
To the mayor's office only?
Correct.
Okay. Did you handle it to somebody in the front, or you give it to the key point that is named on the investigation?
I gave it to the mayor himself.
You give it to Brian A. De Peña.
Correct.
Okay. So here's the two of them.
There's half the investigation. You know, it had to be one of those people that either negligent, like I said last week.
And to be fair to the process, Mr. Bennett, can you please come to the podium and ask the same question? Who did you send your investigation or your report exactly?
I sent it to the mayor, I sent it to Helton, and I sent it to Lieutenant Rossi.
Okay. Did you send it to post?
I did not.
Okay. Can you repeat those names so we can have it for the record?
I sent it to the mayor, I sent it to Attorney Helton, and I sent it to Lieutenant Rossi.
So, okay. So Davian Spanner was not there on the email?
No, no,
Okay. Just those three people?
those three.
Understand. Okay. Thank you so much.
Unless you have any other questions, I think we.
Councilor Vice President, you have the floor.
I appreciate your patience. I appreciate your cooperation, your concern, your good faith, even though some see it otherwise. And I mean, I've had situations with your union where we don't agree. So you guys know, I'm not doing favoritism. You guys know how I am.
Absolutely.
And I'm just disappointed in all of this. It's not a perfect department, but the entire department works day in and day out for this community, and then to be treated the way that you guys are being treated today, it's just not okay. It's not fair, and that's all I'm gonna say.
Thank you, Councilor Vice President Infante. So let's go to the list, and we have Councilor Reyes.
Through you, Council President.
Sure.
I don't know who is the person to respond my question, but I want to know when they decide from the mayor office when they decide to hire a consultant, they do a big contract to the city, or they need to choose three, and they can compare what is the more better offer or something like that?
Okay, the bidding process.
So just so you know, in the past, we put it out to bid. We had used a prior agency to do investigations. Unfortunately, the principal of that agency had a heart attack. I believe one of Mr. Bennett's earlier contracts was originally given to that person. They had a heart attack. They couldn't do it. So we were out looking for agencies. We have a list. There's a state list, and you can.
You have a list of state vendors.
State vendors.
Yeah.
We list. I actually personally called 5 of them, 5 different, none of the ones that are here today, and none of them returned my phone calls, none of them returned my email. So that's the process you do. You go out there looking for independent, and
Yeah, and the
at some
price.
point- At some point, Mr. Bennett.
The price limit have to be met at
Well,
some
that's why they're
point.
on the state contracts, because, yes.
You have to be
And then
less than-
they give you a proposal, so you understand, and you can accept or
Yeah.
not accept what they,
It have to be less than 50,000.
yes,
That's based on a state. If you're using a state vendor, you have to be less than a certain amount,
yes.
and then you go from there.
And for Mr. Bennett in the last time, because we never know when an investigation is going to come up. I mean, hopefully they never come up. What we like to do is have the person available. As you well know, sometimes to get people, it takes some time. So that's why Mr. Bennett's contract was kind of broad. It was, hey, if we need any, it wasn't specifically for this investigation, it was, if we need investigations, we will use your agency, and that was the nature of it. So when this came up, it was under the umbrella of that contract.
There was 2 others that you guys used, Mr. Bennett.
Yes.
All right. Councilor Reyes? Do you have the bills for that, for both investigation? I know that on the Bennett side, on the Bennett one, you say that it was close to $39,000.
I believe they're contained in there. I believe one was approximately 36,000 and the other was approximately 7,000.
7,000. All right, great, no problem. So the invoices are in the report. Then we have the next, Councilor Reyes, you good?
Yeah.
All right, we have Councilor LaPlante.
Mr. Hooton,
All
thank
right.
you. Have a seat. Secretary Bennett? I'm going to go back to the report again. News there were regarding Castro. We already talked about the pursuit. You talked about the 3 police officers besides Castro, Mr. Castro. So we got that pretty clear. I want to talk about the 4 allegations or 4 points of which you recommended disciplinary action. And I'm going to ask you what they are. I have them written down. What they are, what you recommended, and then why you recommended that. I'm sure you had a variety of different places you can go and why you selected what you selected for the recommendation. So, in no particular order, the vehicle pursuit.
I recommended sustained 90 days suspended. And the reason for that was the recklessness of the driving of the chief and the fact that it was clearly from all the calls that were coming in, it was clearly a bad check. And to be driving on the sidewalk and going the wrong way down one-way streets and driving on the other side, and it did actually cause a car. It did end up in a car accident. So that's the reason why I recommended 90
days. With that false report, termination. Why?
Termination. That's a false report. A police officer files a false report and lies in their police report. That's actually a felony, and it's fallen right under what Post is trying the most. I shouldn't say the most, but one of the major things that Post is trying to do, which is to make sure that the police officers are honest and doing what they're supposed to be. It's something that he was in a position where had someone chose to charge him with that, I think the evidence was sufficient. So he committed a felony, and he should be terminated for that.
As an aside, when I was first on the council, here's a little bit of history lesson. In 1998, my first year on the city council, we actually had a police officer who was well decorated at the time, who lied on the police report, and the chief at that time was Ronald Gilmet, Chief Gilmet, who was a former state police officer. You may know him, and he fired the police officer. And by the way, this police officer, I think I can mention the name. It's in the newspaper. Officer David Padalaro, who was received a lot of accolades back in the day, but because he lied on the police report, Gilmet fired him. So in our city, there is a track record of when you lie in a police report, there is ultimate termination, and that has happened. So I just want to make sure that we know that. Number 3, intimidation, termination.
Yes, and that had to do with the consistency of it, that it seemed like the officer, it was clear to people who I was interviewing that the officer had emotional problems, had been seeking help, and to follow up the officer going over to the mayor's house the night before and to pick him up and to throw into the mix, and this is from the officer himself, that no one could be trusted, that he was going to get charged, that he couldn't trust the white officers. That was such a step over the line that for a police chief to do that, it merited being terminated.
When you were considering that one, the criminal one makes a lot of, that's kind of black and white to me. But on this one, there seems to be more of discretion, judgment, as to termination versus maybe a year suspension, 2 years, or something else, right? So I want to drill down just a little bit more with you. Why termination and not another punishment that you may have considered? Was there a track record elsewhere in the Commonwealth where that's typically what I don't know why. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
And I didn't have a track record on former Chief Castro that at all. I didn't know of any other problems he'd had. He may have had them at the sheriff's department. I don't know, and I wasn't making that assumption that he did. I know that's the law enforcement agency that he worked at before, and I think you're absolutely right. There is a lot more discretion with this one. Part of it was the fact, the termination, part of it was the fact that he was under suspension by post at that time. And the fact that he was still going to meetings, deciding the city budget, and still interacting with officers, bringing this type of stuff forward, that played a role in my mind, that he was suspended by post at the time. But I think you're absolutely right, Councilman. There is a lot more flexibility there than there is in someone who lies and is committing a felony.
And the last one for your recommendation, one wasn't sustained, but this one was unethical hiring practices. And I believe that one also you recommended termination. Why?
The reason for that was it was something that had spread over from when he was, before he was even the police chief, and it had continued right through. And there were 3 people, one of whom was hired who actually was still under suspension by post, and another one, and he was trying to get, and the best way I can put it is, trying to have, he knew he couldn't vouch for this individual, but he was trying to get other officers in the department to vouch for this individual. And it seemed to me it was almost like trying to create a conspiracy to get this individual onto the police department. And that's why I made that recommendation.
And termination to me is the nuclear bomb. I mean, that's something that's pretty serious. You're taking someone's livelihood, potential pension, depending on things and depending on time. I mean, it is a significant penalty. You've offered that 3 times on 3 different allegations, and that, the magnitude of that is significant. And I just don't want to gloss over that you've decided that you were going to, in your review, you were going to throw the most harsh penalty you possibly could based on that. And I just want to make sure that I'm clear that you chose not to go in between. You went to, I'm going to say the word extreme, but that's got a negative connotation, but to the very edge, to the end, right? So I'm not sure if you want to comment on that again or not.
Just that I don't do it very often. That's not a usual recommendation from CIC. It takes some extraordinary circumstances for that to be the recommendation from us.
And that is a powerful statement based on what you have done in your track record throughout the Commonwealth, and you've seen a lot. And to say that that's a rare occurrence that you offered this, I'm not sure, I don't want to use the word extreme, but to the most significant penalty possible. There it is. Says a lot to me. Thank you. To recap my comments on this, you can stay or sit down. By the way, when you're done and I'm finished asking my question, I'm willing to get you and Mr. Moore some water because you guys have been here for a while. Would you care for a glass of water? Because after I'm done, I'll be happy to get you.
No, thank you.
Mr. Moore, you all set? All right, you guys are going to stick it out. All right. Listen, to me, the focus here, we're hearing a lot about other stuff, timing, we're hearing about investigations on this, that, and the other. I'm hearing all that. And I'm not saying that's not important. But I want to crystallize what I think we should be focusing on here. When you have a report that's been made by someone of the stature of Secretary Bennett that was not refuted by the secondary report that was issued by Maverick, regardless of the other stuff that we've been hearing this evening, regardless of that, but is not refuted at all. That's powerful. We, I think, should be more focused on the individual who has caused the damage that's bringing us here tonight. It's Mr. Castro. Let's be honest. This report, there are 3 other officers, I understand that. But in comparison, that is where our focus should be on. And I have so far, just listening, I'm having an open mind, but the book's about to get shut here as I'm trying to be neutral on this and hearing all sides, because there's nothing I'm hearing tonight, nothing that I'm hearing tonight that suggests to me that our focus should not be on Mr. Castro. I think that is where it should be because of the pages and pages, the testimonies, the emails, the conversations. If you go, and yes, there's other stuff there too, but if you focus on the principle, that is where the focus is. And so I'll stop there. I don't want to get to a conclusion, but you can read where I'm going with this. So I'll stop right there. Thank you very much, Council President.
Mr. President.
Thank you. Through you, Council President.
If I may, I think you need to make your 10 o'clock vote.
Motion to pass by 10.
Second. Aye. Thank you. Through you, Council President. Just to elaborate on something that my colleague, Vice President, said, and to you, Mr. Hooden, that I have a lot of respect. You said something earlier that you are the gatekeeper of the city, and I just want to remind you that you might be the gatekeepers, but we are the check writers. So you should, one time I told you that, I asked you to somehow just give us legal's opinion, because that's what you're here for. I don't know if you remember that. And I don't want to keep pounding on you. I don't think it's fair, but some flaws throughout the investigation or throughout the way that we get the communications or the information, it comes to us again as you, most likely as your legal opinion most of the time. I mean, most likely as your personal opinion most of the time. When we talk about anything, well, I think. No. What is the legal that you should tell us? But again, just that hit me when you said, I'm the gatekeeper of the city, which is great, but we are the check writers. So somehow you need to communicate with us evenly, the same way you communicate with upstairs. And I, with all the respect that I have, and again, I don't want to keep beating a dead horse because I don't think we're going to go anywhere, but hopefully this meeting, like I always said, brings something positive, and we can at least get the right communication between all of us and the legal department and us, so we can don't look as fools outside. Because we look fools when somebody else had the information that you should have provided to us and we don't have it. And some people in this building might have the information that we should have. And again, we don't have it. And somehow people get the information before we do. And sometimes I'm home wondering how it happens when we have a city attorney that might have this information in his hands, but we don't have it. And when we asked the mayor, he said, you work for us. When we ask you somehow that we don't got the information, the mayor has it to us, you work for the mayor. So it's confusing. With all due respect, I think we should change the way we do the legal stuff here, and we should communicate with this legislative body at the same time. We communicate with the mayor when it's something that have to do with reports or anything legal that we are involved. That's what I'm saying. And that's okay. I'm all set with you. And if I can ask one last question to Rob, Mr. Maverick, Mr. Moore, just when they hired you, you said that you were hired to check on 2 devices.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Did you say that you were hired to investigate? Basically, you said 2 devices. I don't want to quote everything that it's in the intro, but you said on your own words 2 devices, right?
Yes.
A cell phone and
A laptop.
a laptop. And what was the finding of those devices? If you can share with us.
So we downloaded text messages from the cell phone and emails from the laptop. So in a cursory review, initial review of the text messages, without further context, they didn't look so good. They required further context, which was supplied, and you'll note in the investigation that it says that the explanations were sufficient to rule out any valid concerns of collusion. Doesn't mean that somebody couldn't say, well, this one, any valid. The rest of it is just white noise. So we gave those text messages in full to the parties that were communicating and asked them for explanation, which they provided, which we reviewed, which we then made a finding that nothing to see here. Nothing valid came out of that. Did require context, though, because without that context, one could look at it and make an assumption of what it meant. That's not what we did. We asked for clarification, we got it, and that's that.
And also at the beginning of the meeting, you say you're in agreement with the Bennett report, all their findings. You're not.
We didn't.
No.
We did not reinvestigate what Daniel Bennett did. So I didn't have those interviews with people. I didn't look at necessarily the same information because we were not investigating anyone. We were investigating to determine how it expanded and if there was collusion.
Okay, what I was going with that is that in that same context, you said that you're not here to discuss that. It's just what you were hired to do. But if it was something, you would have done it differently. What would something different that you would have done that Bennett did that you wouldn't? You said at the beginning.
Two things. I would have interviewed William Castro, no matter how long it took me to do it. And two, I do not, and Attorney Houghton said it, we do not make recommendations on discipline. That is not for us to do. You make a finding, and you should state that, this finding is a violation of this policy, city policy, department policy, recommend forwarded to the department head or hiring and firing authority for their review. If it appeared to be a violation of the law, appears to violate Mass General Law, whatever, recommend that you send to the county district attorney or AG's office for review. So perhaps a philosophical difference in how we would do things, but I would have made darn sure that we interviewed William Castro, because what you'll find, because I did read his 205-page rebuttal, I did read all of his exhibits that he asserts support his findings. That makes a difference. That does make a difference. But no, I didn't have a problem eventually the police officers did sit down with us, but they filed grievances. They didn't want to sit down with us. We had it scheduled for one date. They requested it moved 2 weeks later. Okay, no problem. Okay, again, they weren't the target of my investigation. I had considered just contacting them, but I was damned if I did, damned if I didn't, because if I didn't follow procedure and request it through, then there would be criticism on that end. So I went through the process. But again, each officer, literally, when they came in, I made it clear to them that they are not the target of any investigation, that we're trying to just gather information and obtain understanding. I appreciate the hitman comment, but it's just not true.
Thank you. One last question to Mr. Hooten. Thank you for your all set. Mr. Hooten, even though everything is public, everything is out there, so is this meeting in order and there's no legal consequences for none of us while, going through this report, which is public, but I want to hear from basically our legal advisor, which is you.
Sure, obviously you could stray into areas that we have agreements on, stray into areas that are protected. That's my job here, is to make sure that you don't. Again, when I say gatekeeper, I'm sorry, I am the gatekeeper for you too. And just because you're a member of the council doesn't mean that you might not do something that puts the city in peril. And my job is to protect the city, not protect the council, not protect the mayor. So yes, if you were to delve into areas that I believe that you should not, that could put the city at bay. I mean, you might very well say something as simple as, well, I think we're wicked liable, I think we should pay up. I would tell you that's not something you should say. That puts the city in peril. So it may be your opinion, that's why I'm here.
Thank you. Thank you, Speaker.
Right, we have Councilor Luzon.
Oh, thank you, Council President. And the good thing being the last one, so most of my
You're
questions.
not the last one.
I'm not?
No.
Oh, good. Oh, you're the last one, Council President.
No, Councilor Santiago. going
Okay,
next.
I'm almost. Some of my questions are already, they answered, but I still have a few questions, just for the record. And I want to ask through you, Council President, if a letter was sent to the mayor, to Mayor De Peña for this meeting? If we send a letter inviting him to this meeting?
No, we did not.
Okay. All right, thank you. But did we,
It's
this is a
that
continuing?
we have the continuation
Of
of
the
the
other
previous meeting, which on the previous meeting we did invite the administration and then we have a representation of the mayor here.
Okay,
at that time.
okay. And for the record, can Madame Claire read the letter that was sent to us for the first meeting from Mayor De Peña? January 22nd, it's in the front. Please, if I'm,
Council, yeah, I have that letter here. It's January 22nd, 2025, excuse me. Lawrence City Council, regarding the Bennett report. It says, "Dear councilors, I'm unable to attend your meeting tonight. I am awaiting the results of a report I commissioned regarding the Castro situation. It is my belief that the Bennett report is incomplete and both reports need to be reviewed. Once the new report is complete, I will share a copy with the council and we'll have a press release discussing both reports. Thank you in advance for your cooperation. Sincerely, Brian A. De Peña."
thank you. I just wanted that for the record. And I want to ask the city attorney, if I may, Council President.
Sure.
Just for the record, how many months we waited for the Bennett report? And I know you answered this in the first meeting, but I wanted to repeat that for
How
the people.
long the entire Bennett report took?
No,
them?
how long do you office made us wait for the Bennett report? Because according to Mr. Bennett, he submitted the report on October 13, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
How many weeks, how many months we waited?
Okay, just so you know, I did not make you, the council, wait. I made everyone wait. I
Okay.
did not distribute it to anybody. I believed I had the legal right because it was an ongoing investigation to withhold it from everybody. I do not single out the council. I did not single out any councilors. I believe I was doing my job. I believe that the city may have been in peril if we released a document that was still under investigation. So you mean Mr. Bennett?
Mr.
That wasn't the question, I'm
Is-
sorry.
is-
Mr. Mon, when did you get the report? Bennett report, sorry.
When did we get the Bennett report? I don't have a specific date. It was before January, yes. It could have been. It would be in the report, so. So it's still investigating.
Again, I can only control what I do. much like when I was here last time, and I just take great umbrage at this because the mayor accuses me of leaking documents, you accuse me of leaking documents. No, but if I may, Council President, I just, you know, sometime I just have to speak up a little, okay? I didn't give it to anybody. If someone here gives it to a third party, you can't blame me. If someone from the mayor's office gives it to a third party, you can't blame me. My office did not give it to anybody. My office protected it. So the question should be, did I hand it to him? No, that did not happen. When I was here the last time, a document was released to a third party. I never had that document in possession. I never saw that document. So I'm just take umbrage that there's a suggestion that somehow there's a leak in my office. I do what's according to the law. I give it when, and if someone else goes around me, that's on them. It's not on my office.
So your office never sent it to the Maverick investigators.
Again, I can't say never. I've been asked for that after the time that it was released. I may have sent him a copy. At this point, I can't tell you ever. But I'm saying I never leaked it to anybody when I was trying to withhold it.
Okay, no problem. Councilor Luzon.
Oh, thank you. I'm not finished yet.
No problem.
And thank you for clarifying that. And the report, you don't know, but I'm assuming maybe should I ask the other consultant? That report was unredacted, because the one that was sent, not to you, I think I should ask him.
The one that was leaked to Mr. Duggan was unredacted.
No. The Bennett report, the one that was sent to the second consulting agency. Can I ask the other consulting agency?
Of course, you have the floor.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. What a long night. The report that you received, that report, it was unredacted?
It was unredacted, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Initially, we just had the narrative, we didn't have the exhibits, so had no idea what was being referenced.
Is that a common practice to get a unredacted report? 'Cause I'm asking because they made us wait. I mean, personally, they made me wait months to get a report, the Bennett report, because the excuse was that it was unredacted. Is that a common practice that for you, consulting agency, to receive unredacted reports?
So, yeah, if it's again, the Bennett investigation was literally, we had no idea what was what. So it was research for us. It was reading. It was part of the investigation, not that we were reinvestigating that, but getting a history of what happened, because we didn't know what happened. We weren't told what happened. We weren't suggested what may have happened. It was our scope was very narrow on what we were doing. So I requested things so that I could have a better understanding of what had transpired. So, and I believe, and I don't remember at what point, I did request the exhibits, and I believe it was from Attorney Hooton, who emphatically stated in his email that because it was subpoenaed by post or whatever, that it was highly confidential, blah, 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 blah. I mean, he put that language in there, which of course we understood, but in fairness to Attorney Houghton, he absolutely, when he did forward the exhibits, because we only had the narrative at first, made it crystal clear to us that it was, again, I think it was something that he didn't need to say, but needed to say just so it could be documented. Understood that that was not to be shared, which we did not share it with anybody. It was for our purposes only, to get history and understanding.
But you're just saying that you receive an email for the city's attorney, and he just mentioned
The exhibits.
the exhibit. You receive a report?
Exhibit.
The
exhibit, which
yes.
is the Bennett report.
No.
No.
The exhibits that he refers to in his reports.
Okay.
So the secondary documentation.
Okay,
That
all
goes
right.
on the
So
behind.
you never, because my first question is that if you receive an unredacted Bennett report, that was my first question.
Yes.
Okay,
Mhm, you do.
so it's not a, you can call it whatever you want to call it, but.
No,
my-
Councilor Luzon, what we're trying to say here, that Attorney Houghton didn't send the report, but he did send the supplementary documentation of the report
Oh.
subsequently. Correct, Attorney Houghton?
So there would be a later request. After they had the initial Bennett report, there was a request that they get the supplementary documents. So this would be later. It would, again, you gotta look at it in two parts.
Explain it.
Okay. If you look at your document, it has 83 pages. That's the report. Much like when you have a book and there's a reference that I took this information from another book, or I got this information for discussing it, those are the exhibits. So when he initially got his report, whoever he got the report from, he did not get any exhibits. So at a later date, he requested from my office the exhibits, having already had the report,
That's what I wanted to know.
but not from me.
Not from you, but that's what I wanted to know. If the report was sent to the second consultant, okay?
It was, yes.
It was. Thank you. I appreciate
Who did it?
answer.
Who sent it to him?
And then unredacted.
I have no idea. I did not
Okay,
send
you
it.
didn't, exactly. So it was sent to the second consultant well, you don't know,
I
because
don't
you don't
know.
have another. So what we know now is that the city's attorney didn't send the report to the second consultant, but he received the Bennett report,
And
unredacted.
again, just so we don't parse words. Initially, at some later date, I might have sent him a redacted version. At some later date, well beyond that, I might have sent him another copy. If anybody asked me another copy, once it was released, I would give it to everybody. So I'm not going to say ever, because that's something that I know somebody will try to come back.
And maybe you can help me with that. If I'm doing an investigation, it's that appropriate for me to receive a report? Will that make me go into a different direction instead of me or the consultant doing the investigation first, at least interviewing the officers first?
No,
Yeah,
again.
enlighten me with your
if-
answer.
If you're listening to what they say, and again, this is not my testimony, is that these are two completely separate investigations. One is an investigation into William Castro and some other activity. The other one is that there was a belief that the Bennett report may have been influenced by outside information. So that was being researched, the outside information. Again, I didn't
No,
order either one.
no,
I
no.
don't know.
Now that I have you there, and I know it's been difficult for your office because we have asked a lot of questions and request a lot of information in the last day, especially me, and well, and so other of my colleagues too. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that your office made us wait weeks, months for the report, for the Bennett report.
Correct.
Yeah, that is correct. For the record. I think that's all the questions that I have for you. I'm being nice tonight.
All right, thank you.
And
All right,
I want
thank
to,
you,
can I
Councilor
go
Luzon.
back, Council President, to the consultant? To
Mr. Moore, yes.
Please. Do you have any relationship, professional or friendly relationship with Joe Salomon?
I was the deputy chief in Salem, New Hampshire. Joe Solomon was the chief in Methuen. Of course I know the man. So Sergeant Samard mentioned that he asked that question, which I wrote in my report that it was respectful and I didn't take offense to it. Took a little bit of offense tonight, but that's okay. He asked if we'd ever worked with EIS. And I said, yeah, last month, they subcontracted a surveillance to us on a case that they were working because it was in New Hampshire. Okay? A lot of PIs like RCB and Maverick collaborate on a lot of projects. That's what it was, okay? That's it. So Joe Solomon doesn't own my company. Joe Solomon has never been to my house. We've never gone out to dinner. We've never shared a beer. Do I know him? Of course I know him. I was in the neighboring town.
Did he recommended this job to you in by any way?
Did they do what?
If Joe Solomon mentioned this job opportunity with the city of Lawrence, this contract to do this investigation?
To me?
Yes.
No. I didn't seek the city of Lawrence. They sought us.
Well,
Okay?
that's where I'm going.
So, I don't know how to answer that question,
Yeah.
except that when they came to us, the first investigation that we did was forensic extraction. And I will tell you that, yes, state police does have that capability, okay? But a lot of private investigators don't. We also offer polygraph services that a lot of investigative services don't. I don't know why they came to us. I have no clue. I don't know Octavian Spanner. I don't know Brian DePena. I don't know any of these people. None.
I
None
don't
of
know
them.
Joe Solomon, so we are in the same,
Okay.
the
So-
same place. But I know that Mr. Castro knows Solomon, and Mr. Castro used to work, well, he's working, he's back, with Octavian Spanner, that was the person that called you. I'm trying to navigate here, because I know the president of the union mentioned it, and some of my constituents also, they send questions, because it is a second
I think what you need to
part.
focus on is the
No,
findings
you don't tell
of
me what I
our
need to
report,
focus on. I'm
because
asking questions.
our report didn't do any favors to William Castro, and it didn't do any harm to any member of the Lawrence Police Department. So if I were a plant for somebody, I didn't do a very good job for them, because our report does not do any favors for William Castro, nor does it harm in any way any member of the Lawrence Police Department. Okay, I was a police officer for 25 years. I will bleed blue until my final breath. Okay, we did not have a target. There was no member of the Lawrence Police Department that was a target. Absolutely not. It was never asked of us. It was never suggested to us, and it certainly wasn't our finding.
And I appreciate your comment, and thank you for your service to this great nation as a police officer, former police officer. But my job as a city councilor is to ask questions. Some of them are not
Okay,
what
I
you want
just
to
want-
hear. And I think it's one of my last questions to you is that where did the interview of Mr. Castro took place?
At the office, at Maverick Investigative Services office,
Okay.
with myself and Rob Budrick.
And why did, is that I think you mentioned, or the other, Mr. Bennett mentioned that they usually record the interviews, and in Mr. Castro's case, the interview was not recorded. Is that part of your practice?
No, he declined to have it recorded, just as if the officers had declined to have it recorded, I wouldn't have recorded it. You always want to have a recording of it, but I documented, I summarized, and you can see in the report, the summary, everything that he said, which is a summary, of course, it's not verbatim. And I did the same thing with the people that I did, and then attached the audio to the report, which was on the thumb drive.
Did the other officers have the same, did you offer the other people that you interviewed the same
Yes,
opportunity?
Yes.
You did?
yeah.
Okay. According to,
Council Luzon, the only difference that as he mentioned, is that on the William Castro situation, since Castro denied the recording,
Okay.
we don't know what was the conversation. We just have the statement of facts.
Correct.
And the statement of facts, it says it's a fairly summary of your understanding of what he said. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So it's not necessarily what he said, but your understanding of what he said.
I'm taking notes as he's speaking, so yes. I mean, did I
And
catch
then-
every word? No, of course not.
Yeah, difference than the Bennett report, that the Bennett report actually transcribed the conversation.
Correct.
On that,
Correct.
and that's one of the mayor's
Right.
difference between the
So,
two.
what I did with the ones that were recorded, I summarized, and then the full audio file was part of the report that was on the thumb drive.
And-
Councilor Luzon.
Oh, thank you, Council President. Okay, and there was no criminal finding in your report, just for the record.
We weren't tasked with doing that. That was not.
I just wanted to hear from you. And go ahead.
No, we weren't tasked with investigating that.
Okay. Some of the things that I noticed with the two report is that your consulting firm had a very communication with the mayor's office. It looks like with the other consulting firm, with Mr. Bennett consulting firm, things were a little bit more difficult. It's
So-
not your fault. It's not your fault.
Well, I think I need to clarify that. I
Please
spoke to
do.
the mayor 2 times.
You did.
When we sat to discuss the scope of the investigation and who would be our contact, which was Attorney Houghton, and then the day that I dropped off the report. Okay, I didn't have, Attorney Houghton was probably the person that I communicated with the most, who set up the interviews, or if I called him and I had a question, or I requested material. So when I say that I came to City Hall, I'm trying to give kudos to the professionalism of the people that work here, because it was inviting, it was friendly, and professional, okay?
A totally different situation with
I
the other
can't speak to
consulting
his-
agency.
May I just address that, because it's been brought up a number of times. It should be noted that the first investigation was of William Castro. Because it was of William Castro and the relationship between the mayor and William Castro, myself and Michael Owens determined that it was best that we remove the mayor from the situation. So nothing was going through the mayor because we did not want the appearance of anybody interfering with that. So I think if you ask Mr. Bennett to come up right now and ask him, was everybody in the city amenable to him? Did he have any problem getting people? He would say he did not. I don't want to speak for himself. Both sides. I don't want anybody to think like one investigating group got all the people and one didn't. I think Mr. Bennett will speak for himself. Why Mr. Bennett didn't speak to the mayor, I think because myself and Mr. Owens were shielding the mayor because it was his friend and we didn't want anybody assuming that there was an undue influence.
What I find concerning, attorney, is that the mayor was part of the conversation, and I was not there, and you were not there. We don't know what happened in that conversation with the second consulting agency. That is concerning to me as a city councilor.
Again, I'm not defending the
Unfortunately.
mayor, I'm just telling you the process.
And I appreciate that, and also I appreciate all your emails and all your response. I appreciate that, and I appreciate your job. Sometimes I disagree with the way you handle communication, yes. And I have one last question to you, and I'm sorry, Council President, you left me for the end. And you were ordered by the Mayor De Peña not to release, and this is for the record, not to release the Bennett documents after the DA office released the report. This is good for you, because at the beginning, people thought that you released the Bennett report. So this is an opportunity for you to make a statement.
Correct.
You released the report ordered by Mayor De Peña after the DA
I did.
released it? Okay. So you were waiting for the mayor. You were waiting for his order to release the report to all of us. Because I got it at the end of the, around after 3 p.m. on that day.
And it was being redacted by my office. It had-
Redacted for 2 months. Come on, attorney, be
No, no, no,
serious.
again, I'm not saying that. Again, everybody's misinterpreting. From the very
No,
beginning, we were not going to release the Bennett report. It was our belief that it's an ongoing investigation. We did not want to release it to anyone.
And I respect your opinion. I disagree with that. Thank you to both consulting agencies for responding all my questions. And that's what I have, Council President.
Councilor Santiago?
Thank you, Council President. I would like to have in the podium Mr. Moore from the company for the Maverick.
Okay, so more.
Okay. And in the report, mentioned about the interview for Mr. William Castro.
Yes.
You said that in the report, the interview was not recorded, but how you can describe how was the interview, date, time, something to realize because it's not recording and not much in the record. And I would like to ask you as well, how many hours, or can you specify the time did you make the interview for the lieutenant and captain, or for the attorney as well? I would like to know how many hours.
Approximately an hour for each officer, maybe a little bit more, a little less, so roughly an hour. William Castro's interview was on November 14th. I believe he reported to the office at 10 a.m. and it was approximately 6 hours. I heard a question like, again, we weren't re-investigating what Mr. Bennett's findings were. So I did not ask him about the pursuit or what his perception was, because that's not what we were investigating. We were investigating how it expanded, okay? Yes, I wanted to hear from him because I wanted to hear how he thought it expanded, okay? Does that mean that it's absolutely truth? No, that's when you go and you try to corroborate statements that are being made. And from the officer's standpoint, quite honestly, a big part of the interview with each officer was, can you explain the post procedure as you understand it? And the reason we were asking that is that we were quite clear. Now, Rob Budrick retired in 2012. I retired in 2019 from New Hampshire. Post is fairly new and completely foreign to us. So we were trying to understand exactly what is required, what their understanding was, and quite honestly, there is a lot of confusion. They don't quite know. And part of that is because Post is relatively new, growing pains, whatever. But we were trying to understand, we were trying to get their understanding of it, okay? Again, it was not accusatory. Nobody was the target of our investigation at all. So I can't answer for anybody why they decided to do that, except that I can say that from the forensics, the extraction, we did say some of these texts don't look so good, and they need further explanation. They need context. And once they had context, again, you will see that our finding was there's no valid concerns here.
And the interview, in the interview, I can see Castro talk about some police officers, but those police officers didn't catch your attention to call for interview, like Montez,
No.
Aguilera. How many police officers did you interview?
3. Would you like to know why?
Tell me why.
Okay. One is a union president, one is the accreditation manager, and one is oversees IAs. Those would be the 3 people that would have, in our estimation, the most knowledge of what we were trying to understand. Okay, whether what William Castro says is accurate or not, I don't know, because we didn't investigate that. That was not the scope of our investigation. William Castro was not the target of our investigation. There was no target other than to determine how the investigation expanded and if there was any collusion which would have interfered with Mr. Bennett's findings. I can't speak to Mr. Bennett's findings and because we didn't investigate that. You asked the question if I would have done things differently. I would have done things differently. It doesn't mean that Mr. Bennett's wrong. It's just that I would have done it differently.
That's fine, thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other councilors? Councilor Esposito, before you're gonna finish up with that? Fine. I'm gonna ask a few questions. Councilor Esposito Infante.
I want to finish off this discussion. I know Council President has a few questions, but to reiterate something really extremely important that has a legal aspect. So if the city attorney can come, just so you can listen. From the Post letter, the commission wishes to state most emphatically, which emphatically means forceful without a doubt, that it will take whatever steps are necessary to protect the ability of any law enforcement officer in the Commonwealth to make good faith reports to the commission freely and without any fear of retaliation. And the commission will forcefully act in response to any evidence of actual or threatened retaliation. Such actions may include making referrals to appropriate prosecutable entities. I bring that to the forefront again, because out of everything in that letter, to me, that's the most important, the most serious paragraph, especially because we do have testimonials in the Bennett report that reflect what this says. And I want to make sure that if Post or any individual, whether a city employee, Post, whatever, gets involved in a situation that refers to this, that we do not cover anything up, that we don't play these political games, and that we do what we're supposed to do by the law. And I'm going to end with that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to pass the gavel over. I'm going to bring up a few things, probably some comments and some questioning that I'm still debating on my mind. So just to Mr. Moen, so Mr. Moen, first of all, we'd like to just say thank you to you and to Mr. Bennett for being here. Definitely appreciate you guys being here. So just looking into the documents that Mr. Castro provide to you for the investigation, so of how this investigation expanded and if it was an interaction. The report that he submitted to Post when did that happen?
I don't know the exact date. It would be in the report. I don't recall off the top of my head what the date was, but I believe it was sometime in December.
Yes. So why this report that he submitted to Post was important to the investigation?
Why would it be important?
Yeah. If it was after the fact, but it
Because
have
what-
not much to do with
The
the
reason
Bennett
that he
report.
was able to do that is he had his first hearing, and he wheeled in his suitcase-sized tote, and Post gave him 30 days to produce his rebuttal. His rebuttal, as I said, is 205 pages with 65 exhibits. Yes, I read every single page. Is there exculpatory, potentially exculpatory evidence in there? I believe there is, and that's why it's important to interview the target of your investigation, because you have a circumstantial case without the target's or the subject of the investigation's testimony, and then given his opportunity to speak, and then he provides backup documentation to that, that circumstantial evidence now isn't so circumstantial anymore. Now, again, this will be up to Post at this point to review that and determine if the findings are still valid. That was not our job. That's not what we did. That's not what we were asked to do, and it's certainly not what we did. I did, however, read that, listen to what everybody had to say, what they wanted to add, gave them opportunity to explain some things that were, at first blush, concerning. And I think the report is clear that they are no longer of a concern. So,
So essentially, what you're saying is that even though your investigation went on, you guys investigate two different devices at the beginning. You investigate how these might, how the investigation expanded, if it was an interaction, and none of that was conclusive or interfere with
Correct.
with the report.
Correct.
So your report was, as you're saying, did not change the fact that it was an original report and it was a full recommendation from the Bennett report.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
So your report did not interfere or recommend otherwise compared to the Bennett report.
No.
So it is if I ask a question tomorrow by somebody saying, oh, it was a second report, and the second report actually bring up the truth of the case, is that the case?
It brings up the truth that there was no collusion.
Exactly.
It brings up the truth that there's terrible communication. It brings up the truth that there's no trust on either side. Okay, that's what it brings up the truth on. As far as whether I'm saying that Daniel Bennett's investigation is not valid, no. I don't, there's nowhere in my report that it said that.
No,
and
no,
there's
and
nowhere in the report that it said that an officer or anybody can't report to Post.
Yeah.
And Post's letter is inaccurate, okay? The procedural missteps were when that report was sent via email and ended up to recipients that it shouldn't have gone to because a group email was selected that Mayor DePena happened to be on. So it went to unintended recipients. That's the procedural misstep, because there's nowhere in Post that it says that anybody but the head of the agency is mandated. There is no place in the Lawrence Police Department policy that it says anybody but the chief is mandated, okay? But it does talk an awful lot about confidentiality. So, when you send something via email, and you make a mistake and you send it to a group email with unintended recipients, I'm not saying it was done intentionally, but it was certainly careless. That is why, when I delivered my report, it was hand-delivered. It wasn't sent electronically. And it certainly wasn't sent to anybody other than the mayor.
But I mean, it is important that you mention that because your report was the one that was get to the press within 6 hours.
What I can tell you is
It's not in your control.
right.
It's out of your
I
control.
delivered one hard copy and one thumb drive.
But you
to this
see,
office,
you see
to this
how this
building.
community is been so like
Oh, I
into
do.
it
Well, I do.
because of that situation. You giving it to the mayor's office,
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden it get to the press
like I said, there's no trust.
with no
no
markups, no
communication.
nothing.
And if I could solve that for you, then I'd be charging a lot more money.
So essentially, I would like to know. So I have a quick question for Mr. Bennett. Thank you, Mr. Moore. So, Mr. Bennett, have you done any type of similar investigation that intake that amount of time and that amount of effort and that amount of money for a temporary employee in the
what?
past? For a temporary employee in the past?
Have I? Oh, yes.
For temporary employees?
For police,
No, temporary employees,
temporary employee.
because Mr. Castro was a temporary employee.
Oh. Temporary employee. No, I don't think I have for a temporary employee, no.
Usually, what is the the process for a temporary employee? I mean, have you seen anything like this being done?
I haven't done an investigation of, I'm trying to think of, I can't think of an investigation I've done on a temporary employee. I can't think of one offhand. I've done investigations of employees who were in their first year of work for someplace, so that they had no civil service protection and things like that, but not for a temporary employee that I can think of.
Okay. So based on your your previous investigation with the city of Lawrence and in this investigation with the city of Lawrence, did you get access to information that you need to perform your duties, and any interference from the administration, perhaps other than having a communication to halt the investigation?
The only interference I had in my investigation was being told to halt it. That's correct, from the city of Lawrence.
Okay. And your decision was made based on evidence that you were getting throughout the entire investigation?
Correct.
Okay. All right. I have no more questions. I mean, I think that we are clear on the situation that the second investigation didn't oversee or overpass the first investigation. That everything that we have here, we keep on hearing that one surpass the other one. That's not the case. There are two independent investigations with two different things, two main different objective, even though they target in the same case. But I mean, I would like to just close by saying it's been a great effort by the investigators. Mr. Bennett, thank you for everything that you did on the original investigation, and Mr. Moen for clarifying what the second investigation was all about. And I think that the city council, have opened the floor to this investigation. That's something that we felt intrigued by the fact that originally the Internal Affairs investigation was not sufficient information to keep up with the case, but all of a sudden we have over 600 pages of documentation and investigation and a resolution that recommend termination and 90 days suspension for the person in question. So thank you for everything they have done.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, at this point, do we have any further comments or questions? Seeing none, I will now,
Motion to withdraw. I'll make a motion to withdraw.
motion has been made to withdraw item 2825. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Del Rosario. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the ayes have it.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Properly second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you, councilors.